The Pacific Northwest has roads that don't follow normal rules. Some drivers who take the wrong exit are never seen again. Others make it home, but they're never quite the same. Tonight, we're diving into 11 accounts that'll make you think twice before taking that shortcut through the fog. If you're ready to face what's waiting on those dark highways, you're in the right place. This is Verified Fears. You're driving Highway 101 between Yachts and Florence around 11:30 at night, and the fog is worse than you expected. It rolled in from the Pacific about 20 miles back, thick and gray in your headlights, reducing visibility to maybe 50 feet. You've driven this stretch before, but never this late, and the yellow center line keeps disappearing into the mist like something's erasing it ahead of you. The ocean is out there somewhere to your west. You can hear it when you crack the window, but all you can see are the dark walls of Sitka spruce pressing in from the right side of the road. Your phone died about an hour ago, the charging cable finally giving up after months of working only when held at that specific angle. It doesn't matter much anyway since you lost signal back near Sea Lion Caves. You know this road continues north, maybe another 40 minutes to your hotel in Newport, and you've got half a tank of gas. Everything's fine. Except you just passed that weathered barn with the collapsed roof, the one that sits about 30 feet off the road. You remember it clearly because one of the support beams is twisted at an odd angle, almost artistic in the way it caught your headlights. You've been watching the mile markers when they appear through the fog, and that barn should be at least 5 miles behind you by now. But there it is again. Same twisted beam, same missing section of roof on the north side. You slow down a bit, checking your speedometer, confirming you've been doing a steady 45 miles per hour for the past 15 minutes. Your gas gauge hasn't moved. You look at the dashboard clock and it's still 11:47. Which seems right, you think, though you're not entirely sure what time it was when you last checked. You shake your head, deciding you're more tired than you realized, and press on. The fog seems to pulse in your headlights, getting thicker and then slightly thinner in a rhythm you can't quite predict. There's no other traffic, which isn't surprising given the hour and conditions. But it adds to this feeling of being completely alone on this strip of pavement. You pass a mile marker, but the fog obscures the number. Then there's that overturned mailbox you noticed earlier, the green one lying on its side in the gravel pullout. You definitely remember that one because you wondered briefly about the story behind it, why no one had bothered to write it or remove it. And now you're seeing it again. Same pullout, same faded green paint, same position. Your hands tighten on the steering wheel. This doesn't make sense. You haven't turned around, you've been driving straight. You'd know if you'd made a U-turn. You've been watching the road carefully because of the fog. But there's the barn again. And yes, there's the mailbox coming up on your left for what must be the third time. You slow down even more, rolling down your window fully now, despite the cold. The sound of the ocean is louder, or maybe it just seems that way because everything else is so quiet. Not even the wind makes noise up in those trees. You check your rearview mirror and see only fog and the faint red glow of your taillights reflected back. When you look at the dashboard clock, it still says 11:47. You decide to actually time this. When you pass the mailbox, you count slowly, trying to estimate minutes. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, keeping one eye on the road and one on the landmarks emerging from the fog. There's a section where the road curves slightly left, then straightens out. There's a tree on the right side that's been struck by lightning at some point, its top half sheared off and pale against the darker forest. There's the barn. You count approximately 8 minutes of steady driving before the mailbox appears again. 8 minutes at 45 miles per hour should put you 6 miles down the road. But instead, you're right back where you started. The fog hasn't lifted. The clock still reads 11:47. Your gas gauge still shows half a tank. This is when the fear really starts to set in. Not the adrenaline kind, but something colder. Something that makes your stomach feel hollow. You try the radio, but it's all static except for one brief moment when you catch what sounds like someone counting backwards from 10, then nothing. You press harder on the accelerator, pushing up to 60, then 65, watching the speedometer climb while the forest blurs past. The barn appears again. The mailbox, the lightning-struck tree. You slam on the brakes, and the car skids slightly on the damp pavement before stopping completely. You sit there in the middle of the highway, engine idling, hazard lights clicking in rhythm, and you try to think rationally about what's happening. GPS loop, some kind of technical glitch, extreme fatigue causing hallucinations. But you know what you're seeing. You know this stretch of road is repeating. You put the car in reverse and start backing up, watching the mailbox recede in your headlights. You reverse for what feels like 5 minutes, far enough that you should be well past where this loop seems to begin. Then you shift back into drive and head forward again, taking it slow, watching for anything different. But it's all the same. Curve left, straighten out, lightning tree, barn, mailbox. You scream in frustration, and the sound is swallowed completely by the fog and the forest and the terrible silence of this place. That's when you notice the mailbox has moved. Not much, maybe 3 feet, but it's definitely closer to the road than it was before. You stop the car again, staring at it through the windshield. The green paint seems brighter somehow, less faded. You look at the barn in your rearview mirror, and one of the walls that had been collapsed is now partially standing. Your breath comes faster. Whatever this is, it's not just repeating. It's changing. The loop is evolving. You drive faster this time, not counting, not measuring, just trying to get through it, trying to break whatever invisible boundary is holding you here. The forest on your right seems darker, the trees closer together, branches reaching out over the pavement in ways you don't remember from earlier. The ocean sound is gone completely now. There's no sound at all, except your engine and your breathing, and the click of your hazard lights that you forgot to turn off. The barn, when you pass it this time, has smoke rising from where the chimney would be if it were intact. Fresh smoke, gray and real, rising into the fog. The mailbox is standing upright now, its little red flag raised as if someone just put mail inside. You're gripping the steering wheel so hard your knuckles have gone white. The clock now reads 11:46. It's going backwards. You pass a mile marker, and this time you can read it clearly. Mile 167. You know for a fact this section of Highway 101 doesn't have a mile 167, not between Yachats and Florence. The numbers don't go that high on this stretch. But there it is, green and reflective and impossible. When you pass it again minutes later, it reads mile 165. The numbers are counting down. The lightning-struck tree appears, but now it's whole, healthy, its crown full and dark against the marginally lighter fog. You're watching the landscape reverse its decay, becoming less wrong but somehow more terrifying because of it. The barn is fully intact now, lights glowing warm in the windows, a pickup truck parked beside it that definitely wasn't there before. You can see a figure moving past one of the windows. Someone lives there. Someone is inside that barn that was collapsed and abandoned just minutes ago. The mailbox has a name painted on it now, though you can't make out what it says as you speed past. Mile 163. The road surface is smoother, newer. Mile 161. Your car feels different. The engine sounds slightly off. Mile 159. When you glance down, your phone on the passenger seat is no longer dead. It's glowing, showing a full charge, but the date on the screen reads 2019, mile 157. There's a car ahead of you now, tail lights cutting through the fog, and you've never been so happy to see another vehicle in your life. You accelerate to catch up to it, get close enough to see it's an older model sedan, maybe from the 90s. You flash your high beams, trying to get the driver's attention, but they don't respond. You pull closer, and that's when you see the license plate is the wrong color, the wrong format, something from decades ago. Mile 155. The sedan's brake lights flash, and it pulls over. You slow down, your heart hammering, unsure whether to stop or keep going. The driver's door opens and someone steps out, but the fog is too thick to see clearly. They're waving at you, beckoning you to stop. Every instinct screams not to. Mile 153. You press the accelerator and swerve around the stopped sedan, catching just a glimpse of the figure in the road as you pass. They're wearing clothes from another era, and their face is too pale, too smooth, like a department store mannequin. Mile 151. Behind you, more lights appear. Multiple vehicles now, all pulling onto the highway from impossible side roads, all falling in line behind you, creating a procession through the fog. Mile 149. The barn is pristine now, freshly painted with children's toys scattered in the yard and laundry hanging on a line. Mile 147. The trees are younger, smaller. Mile 145. The road is gravel now instead of pavement, your tires crunching over stones. Your car's dashboard is changing, the digital displays replaced with analog gauges, and you're too terrified to look down for more than a second. Mile 143. The vehicles behind you are horse-drawn carriages. You can hear the hoofbeats. Mile 141. The forest is thinner, recently cleared land visible in gaps between trees. Mile 139. You realize with absolute certainty that if you keep driving, if you let this loop continue, you'll drive right out of the present and into something that came before, something that has nothing to do with the world you know. You close your eyes and slam your foot on the brake pedal, bringing the car to a violent stop. You're screaming now, hands over your face, and you stay that way for what feels like hours, but is probably only seconds. When you finally open your eyes, the fog has lifted slightly. You're on Highway 101, pavement intact, modern road signs visible, and there's dawn light filtering through the trees to your right. Your phone is dead again. The clock reads 6:23 a.m. Your gas tank is nearly empty. In your rearview mirror, there's nothing but empty road. The barn, when you spot it far behind you, is collapsed and weathered just like it should be. You drive north with your hands shaking on the wheel, and you don't stop until you reach Newport with the morning commuters around you, solid and real and present. You never take Highway 101 at night again. And you never, ever tell anyone what happened, because you're not entirely sure it did happen. Except for the fact that you lost 7 hours somewhere in the fog, and your odometer shows you traveled exactly 3 miles. You take the exit off Highway 2 near Stevens Pass because your fuel light has been on for the last 15 miles, and you're not sure you'll make it to the next town listed on your map. The sign says Timber Creek, 3 miles, in that old green highway font. And you don't remember seeing it on your GPS before the signal dropped. But small logging towns dot the Cascade foothills, and it's not unusual for maps to miss a few. The 2-lane road winds through clear-cut hillsides, stumps scattered across the slopes like broken teeth, before descending into a valley where the forest closes in again. The town appears suddenly, the way these places do. Main Street emerging from the trees, with that particular Pacific Northwest mix of pragmatism and decay. What strikes you first is how quiet it is for 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Main Street runs maybe 4 blocks, lined with storefronts that look like they haven't been updated since you were a kid. There's a diner with a metal sign advertising breakfast specials, a hardware store with shovels and axes displayed in the window, a Rexall drugstore, which you're pretty sure doesn't exist as a chain anymore. The vehicles parked along the street are mostly pickup trucks, but they're old, really old, with chrome bumpers and those square headlights from decades ago. You spot a Chevy that looks like your grandfather's, the kind with the rounded body from the early 70s. You pull into the gas station at the end of the block, a humble building with 2 pumps out front that have analog displays instead of digital screens. The attendant comes out immediately, which surprises you because full-service stations are rare now. He's wearing coveralls and a baseball cap, maybe 50 years old, with that weathered face you see on people who've worked outside their whole lives. He starts pumping gas before you can tell him how much you want. And when you roll down the window to protest, he just smiles and says, not to worry about it. 89 cents a gallon is fair enough for these parts. You laugh because you think he's joking, but he's not laughing back. The pump clicks and whirs in that mechanical way, numbers rolling over on little wheels behind scratched plastic. And you watch it count up to 4 gallons for $3.56. You hand him a 20 through the window, and he looks at it for a long moment, turning it over in his hands, like he's checking for counterfeit. He holds it up to the light, examining the security strip and the watermark, and his expression shifts to something you can't quite read. He calls over his shoulder, and another man emerges from the garage bay, younger, maybe 30, in the same style coveralls. They have a quiet conversation you can't hear while looking at your $20 bill. Finally, the first attendant comes back and asks if you have anything older. You dig through your wallet and find a 5 and someone's, all printed within the last few years, and they reject those too. The younger man disappears inside and comes back with what looks like a newspaper. And they're comparing your money to something in it, heads close together, voices low. You get out of the car, feeling the first whisper of unease, and ask what the problem is. The attendant folds the newspaper, and you catch a glimpse of the date before he tucks it under his arm. September 14th, 1973. The headline mentions Watergate. He tells you, very politely, that your money looks strange, asks where you got bills with these designs. You explain they're just regular currency. What year does he think it is? He exchanges a glance with the younger man and says, it's 1973. September. Like that's obvious. Like you're the one being strange. You laugh again, but it catches in your throat because both men are completely serious. And when you look past them into the garage, you see a wall calendar showing September 1973. The date's marked off through the 14th. You tell them it's 2025, October, and you need to get back on the highway. The attendant's friendly expression hardens slightly. He says that's not possible. That's not the year. And maybe you've been in an accident or hit your head. The younger man has moved around to block the driver's side door of your car, casual but deliberate. You notice people gathering on the sidewalk across the street, maybe 6 or 7 of them, all watching. They're wearing clothes that do look distinctly vintage. Women in those long skirts and fitted blouses, men in bell-bottoms and wide-collared shirts. Nobody has a phone visible. Nobody is carrying anything that looks modern. The cars parked along the street, now that you're really looking, are all from that era. Fords and Chevys and Dodges from the early 70s. Not a single vehicle newer than that. You try a different approach, asking if you can just pay inside with a card. The attendant asks what kind of card, and when you show him your credit card, he examines it with that same suspicious confusion. He asks what the chip is for, why there are holograms, What bank issues cards that look like this? You're explaining magnetic strips and credit networks when you realize he genuinely doesn't understand, isn't pretending, actually has never seen a modern credit card. The crowd across the street has grown larger. A sheriff's deputy has joined them, his brown uniform and wide-brimmed hat, straight out of a 70s cop show, hand resting casually on his belt near a revolver that looks like standard issue from that period. You back away from the pump, telling them you'll just go. You'll find another town. You're sorry for the confusion. But the attendant says, you can't leave with their gas in your tank. That's theft. And the deputy is crossing the street now with that measured law enforcement walk. You're getting back in your car when the younger man puts his hand on the door. Not aggressive, but firm, and says, maybe you should come inside and talk this through, figure out what's going on. The deputy arrives, and he's polite too. Everyone in this town is so terrifyingly polite. And he suggests the same thing, says, let's all calm down and work this out. Your phone is in your pocket, and you pull it out, thinking you'll show them, prove what year it is. But there's no signal, and when you unlock it to show them the date, they crowd around looking at it like it's alien technology. The deputy asks what it is, this device, and you're explaining smartphones and touch screens when you realize how insane you sound. One of the women from the crowd has joined you now, older, maybe 60, and she's looking at you with something like pity. She says they get folks like you sometimes, people who are confused about when they are, and the town takes care of them until they remember properly. She says it with such kindness that it's worse than if she'd been threatening. You try to leave then, pulling away from the younger man and jumping into your car, locking the doors. The attendant is saying something about payment, but you're starting the engine, putting it in reverse. Except the deputy's truck is behind you now. You didn't see him park it there, blocking you in. You shift into drive and accelerate toward the street, but there are people in the way. That crowd that's grown to maybe 20, standing shoulder to shoulder, not moving, just watching with those patient expressions. You slam on the brakes. Your heart is hammering. Every instinct says, this is wrong, these people are wrong. But they're not acting violent or even angry. They just won't accept that it's 20 to 25. The deputy taps on your window with his flashlight, gestures for you to roll it down. Against your better judgment, you do. Just a crack. He explains, very calmly, that the town has rules about creating disturbances, about spreading confusion. He says you need to stay a while until you've readjusted, until you remember correctly. He promises no one will hurt you, they'll help you. There's a room at the boarding house where you can rest. When you refuse, when you say you're leaving and they can't stop you, his expression doesn't change, but something in his eyes does. He asks if you've noticed the roads yet. You haven't. But now you look past the crowd, and you see the streets leading out of town, all 4 directions from Main Street. And they curve away into the forest in ways that don't make sense geometrically. They bend too sharply, too soon. The road you came in on should be visible from here, but it's not. It's already disappeared behind the trees, barely a block away. The deputy says people who try to leave usually end up back on Main Street within 20 minutes, no matter which direction they go, no matter how far they drive. He's seen it dozens of times. The town doesn't let anyone go who might spread different ideas about what year it is, what's real. It's nothing personal. It's just how things work here. You notice details now that you missed before. Every storefront has newspaper boxes outside, and the papers are all from 1973. Different dates, but all from that year. There's a movie theater with a marquee advertising The Exorcist as coming soon. The prices painted on the diner window are impossibly low. Coffee for 25 cents, breakfast for $1.95. A transistor radio's playing somewhere, tinny music that sounds genuinely vintage, not reproduced. These aren't props or recreation. This is either an incredibly elaborate setup or something far worse. The woman who spoke before approaches your window, bending down to your level. She tells you there are 17 other people from different years living in town now, people who arrived confused like you and eventually accepted where they are. She says some of them came from the 1980s, one from the 1990s, even one from 2003. They all live normal lives here now, work at the mill or the diner or the hardware store. They've learned to remember correctly. She says you will too, given time. The alternative, she adds with that same kind smile, isn't really an alternative at all. You ask what happened to people who didn't learn. She doesn't answer directly, just glances toward the edge of town where the forest presses close. The deputy follows her gaze and says some folks insist on leaving, insist on being difficult. He says the roads do eventually let them go, but by then they're not quite right anymore, not quite themselves. He's heard stories of people showing up in other towns speaking nonsense, or not speaking at all, or going missing entirely in the forest between here and anywhere else. He strongly recommends cooperating. Your phone buzzes in your hand, startling everyone. Impossible because there's no signal, but it's vibrating with a notification. You look at the screen and the date has changed. It now reads September 14th, 1973. The time is correct, but everything else has shifted backward. You watch as apps disappear from your screen, the interface simplifying, the device itself seeming to regress. The crowd murmurs, pressing closer to see. The deputy's hand is on your door handle now. The attendant is saying something about getting you settled at the boarding house. Someone else is offering to show you the mill where you could find work. They're all so helpful, so concerned, so absolutely convinced of their reality. You make a decision. You gun the engine and drive straight at the thinnest part of the crowd, laying on the horn. People scatter and you're through, speeding down the main street toward the North Road out of town. In your rearview mirror, you see them reorganizing, see vehicles starting up. But you're accelerating, taking the curve where the road disappears into the trees. The pavement is smooth under your tires, the white line clear, and for a moment you think you've made it. Then the road curves back on itself. Impossible sharp turn, and you're on Main Street again. Approaching from the south this time. The same crowd waiting exactly where you left them. You try again, taking the East Road. Same result. West Road. Same result. Each time you end up back on Main Street, coming from a different direction, and each time the crowd is waiting patiently, like they knew exactly what would happen. Your gas gauge is dropping fast now, all that driving in circles, and you're down to a quarter tank. The deputy is walking toward your car again, taking his time. The sun is setting behind the mountains, casting long shadows down the empty street. You realize with cold certainty that you'll be spending the night in Timber Creek whether you want to or not, and that every night you spend here will make it harder to remember that it's really 2025, that there's a world outside where credit cards exist and phones have touch screens, and the internet connects everything. The town will wait patiently for you to forget. It's had decades of practice after all, even if for them it's always September 1973. You watch the deputy approach, and you know you have to decide right now whether you'll keep fighting or start forgetting, and you're not sure which choice is worse. The rain starts just past Banks, coming down in sheets that overwhelm your wipers even on their highest setting. You're on Highway 26, heading west through the Coast Range, trying to get to Cannon Beach before dark. But the October weather had other plans. The two-lane highway winds through old-growth forest. Douglas firs so tall and dense, they create a tunnel effect even in daylight. And now with the rain and the early dusk, your headlights barely penetrate 20 feet ahead. Your phone lost signal about 10 miles back, which isn't surprising in these mountains, and the GPS went with it. But you've driven this route before, and you know it's basically a straight shot to the coast. Just stay on 26, and eventually you'll smell the ocean. The radio has been cycling through static for the past 15 minutes. So you reach over to turn it off when a voice cuts through clearly, startlingly loud, in the confined space of your car. It's a male voice, calm and professional, the kind you associate with emergency broadcasts or news anchors. He says, "Attention to the driver of the silver Honda CR-V, currently at mile marker 43, heading westbound on Highway 26. This is an emergency notification. You need to turn your vehicle around immediately." You glance at your dashboard, at your silver CR-V's interior, and your hands tighten on the wheel. You just passed mile marker 43 30 seconds ago. You tell yourself it's a coincidence, maybe some kind of highway maintenance broadcast, though you've never heard anything like it. You reach for the radio to change the station, but it's already on scan, cycling through frequencies on its own, and every single one carries the same voice. FM, AM, it doesn't matter. The voice continues. The driver needs to be aware that your presence has been detected. It knows you're in this area. Estimated approach time is 6 minutes. Please turn around while you still can. The clinical tone makes it worse somehow. Like reading stock prices or weather reports, no urgency despite the words themselves. Your heart is beating faster now. You press the power button on the radio, hold it down until the display goes dark and silent. The voice continues speaking. 5 minutes, 30 seconds. It's moving faster than previous observations suggested. You're approaching a passing lane in approximately 1/4 mile. This would be your last safe opportunity to turn around before the road narrows again. You look at the radio display, and it's definitely off, screen black. But the voice is still coming from the speakers. Same volume, same clarity. You try the volume knob, and it does nothing. You're still hearing every word. The passing lane appears exactly where the voice said it would, a brief widening of the highway, with a dashed yellow line. You slow down, considering. But this has to be some kind of prank or malfunction. Maybe your radio is picking up some weird CB transmission, or there's a local radio station doing a Halloween bit. Except it's describing your location in real time, and your radio shouldn't work when it's powered off. You accelerate through the passing lane without turning around. The voice says, "Noted. The driver has chosen to continue westbound. Updating advisory. It has changed direction to intercept. New estimated contact time is 4 minutes, 20 seconds. You pick up your phone from the cup holder, even though you know there's no signal. The screen is black. You press the power button and nothing happens. Battery must have died. But then the voice comes from your phone speaker too, joining the car speakers in stereo. 4 minutes. You're currently traveling at 48 miles per hour. At your present speed, you'll be entering the Pine Creek section in 2 minutes, which is heavily forested on both sides with limited visibility. Strongly advise increasing speed or finding an alternate route. Your phone screen stays black, but the voice continues emanating from it, that same measured tone. This isn't a prank anymore. You press harder on the accelerator, taking the curves faster than you should, tires squealing slightly on the wet pavement. The rain hasn't let up, and the forest on both sides is completely black between the trees. No lights from houses or buildings, no other cars. Highway 26 through this section is notoriously isolated, and you haven't seen another vehicle in 20 minutes. The voice says, 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Please note that it doesn't follow roads. It's moving through the forest directly toward your position. Current distance is approximately 2 miles and closing. You're breathing hard now, checking your rearview mirror obsessively, seeing nothing but rain and darkness and your own tail lights reflected in the mist. The road signs are coming up fast, mile markers in the low 40s, and you're trying to remember how far it is to the next town, somewhere with lights and people. The voice continues its countdown. 3 minutes. You're entering Pine Creek section now. Visibility will be reduced. It's 1.8 miles from your position. You want to scream at the voice, ask what it is, but you're alone in your car and the radio is off and your phone is dead, and somehow you're still hearing this impossible broadcast. The forest does get denser here, just like the voice predicted. The road narrows slightly, and the trees press closer, their branches hanging over the pavement and scraping the top of your car occasionally. Rain streams off the needles and curtains. You're doing 60 now, too fast for conditions. But the voice said 2 miles, and that means something is less than 2 miles away, coming through these trees. And you need to put distance between you and wherever you were. The voice says, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. You should be aware that 2 previous drivers received similar warnings on this highway. One turned back successfully, the other did not. That vehicle was found 3 days later at mile marker 38. Mile marker 38 is ahead somewhere. You're at 44 now, and you're driving toward where they found that car. You slam on the brakes, tires sliding on the wet road, and crank the wheel to make a U-turn. But the road is too narrow here, and there's a steep embankment on one side and a wall of trees on the other. You reverse, trying to angle it, your backup camera showing nothing but white fog from the rain. The voice says, very calmly, 2 minutes. Stopping was inadvisable. It's now 1.3 miles away, and you're stationary. Recommend immediate forward movement at maximum safe speed. You give up on the turn and punch the accelerator, fishtailing slightly before the tires grab, and you're speeding westbound again. 70 miles per hour through the rain and curves, hands locked on the wheel, eyes darting between the road and the mirrors. The voice continues. 1 minute, 45 seconds. 1 mile. You're approaching the steepest section of the descent. Sharp curves ahead. It's moving parallel to the road now, approximately 30 yards to your north. You look out the driver's side window, north into the forest, and see nothing but darkness and the streaking rain. Then your headlights catch something between the trees. Just for a second, a glimpse of movement too large to be a deer, too fast to be a person. It's there and gone, deeper in the forest. But keeping pace with your car, you accelerate more, pushing 80, the steering wheel vibrating in your hands. The voice says, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 3/4 of a mile. Please maintain current speed and trajectory. Do not stop for any reason. Do not exit the vehicle. Keep all windows closed and doors locked. The radio suddenly comes back on, display lighting up even though you never touched it. And it's scanning through stations frantically, numbers flipping past faster than should be possible. But every station carries the same broadcast. That same voice overlapping itself in a dozen frequencies, creating an echo that pounds in your skull. Your phone lights up too, screen showing no carrier, no battery, but the voice is coming from it louder now. 1 minute, 1/2 mile. It's matching your speed. Recommend. The broadcast cuts out mid-sentence. The silence is somehow worse than the voice. Your radio display flickers and dies. Your phone screen goes dark. You're driving through the rain with only the sound of your engine and the wipers and your own ragged breathing. Then you see lights ahead, just faint at first through the rain, but getting brighter. Tail lights. Another car on the road ahead of you. You nearly cry with relief. You're not alone. You accelerate to catch up, get close enough to see it's a sedan, older model going slow around the curves. You're about to flash your high beams, try to signal them when the voice returns. Not from your radio or phone this time. It's coming from everywhere and nowhere, filling the car, vibrating through the seats and doors. 30 seconds, 200 yards. Do not approach the vehicle ahead. That's not a vehicle. Look at it closely. Look at it. You don't want to look, but you do. You're close enough now that your headlights illuminate the sedan ahead, and something is wrong with it. The proportions are slightly off, the body too long, the wheels not quite round, and there are no license plates. No exhaust coming from the tailpipe. The brake lights are on, but the car isn't slowing for the curves. You swerve into the oncoming lane to pass it, not caring if something's coming the other way, just needing to get past this wrong thing pretending to be a car. As you pull alongside, you make the mistake of glancing over. The driver's side window is dark, tinted, or maybe just empty. But something moves behind the glass. Something that presses against the window from inside. Too many limbs, too many angles. Nothing like a human shape. The voice is screaming now. That professional calm completely gone. Go, 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 it's right there, get past it now. You floor the accelerator, and the CRV surges forward, engine screaming, and you're pulling ahead of the sedan. In your rearview mirror, you see the sedan accelerate too, impossibly fast, closing the distance. But then it just stops. Doesn't brake, doesn't slow down gradually, just stops completely in the middle of the highway. And then it's gone. Not driving away, not turning around. Just no longer there. The road behind you is empty. Rain falling on wet pavement, nothing else. The voice returns to its calm tone. Clear. Immediate threat has disengaged. You're now entering the town of Elsie. Population 134. Multiple witnesses present. You're safe for the moment. You see the town lights ahead, just a few buildings clustered along the highway. A gas station with its fluorescent glow. And you've never been so grateful for civilization. You pull into the gas station, hands shaking so badly you can barely hold the wheel. There are other people here, someone pumping gas, someone inside the convenience store. Real people. Normal people. You turn off the engine and sit there in silence. Your radio stays off. Your phone is truly dead now. The rain drums on the roof. You're trying to decide if you should tell someone, call the police, explain what happened. But you can't explain it. You don't even know what it was. After 10 minutes, you restart the car and pull back onto Highway 26, continuing west toward Cannon Beach. You drive slowly, carefully, watching the mile markers count down. 38 comes and goes, and you see nothing unusual, just wet road and forest. But when you finally reach your hotel 2 hours later and plug your phone in to charge, it boots up and there's a single notification. A text message from an unknown number, no area code, just zeros. The message reads, "Thank you for complying with emergency notifications. Your cooperation has been noted. Please be advised that Highway 26, between mile markers 38 and 44, is now closed to night traffic indefinitely. Future travel on this route is not recommended. Stay safe." The message is time-stamped from exactly when the broadcast started, an hour and a half ago, when your phone was dead and you had no signal deep in the Coast Range. You delete the message. You check out of the hotel the next morning and take Highway 101 south, then cut inland on a different route. You never drive Highway 26 through the Coast Range again, day or night. Sometimes your car radio will scan through static and you'll hear a voice, calm and professional, counting down from 60 seconds, and you'll turn it off before it can finish. You've learned that some warnings are meant to be heeded, even when you can't explain where they come from, or what they're warning you about, or what happens to the people who don't listen in time. Your GPS dies at exactly the wrong moment, right when you're trying to figure out if the unmarked gravel road to your left is the shortcut the gas station attendant mentioned. She said it would cut 40 minutes off your drive to Port Angeles, that locals use it all the time. Just look for the fork after mile marker 16. You're at mile marker 16, the rain is getting heavier, and you've already added an hour to your trip because of a rock slide closure on Highway 101. You take the turn. The gravel road is narrow but looks maintained enough, winding up into the Olympic National Forest, through stands of Douglas fir and western hemlock that get progressively older and taller as you climb elevation. Within 10 minutes, the maintained part ends. The gravel becomes dirt with embedded roots breaking through the surface. The canopy overhead thickens until you're driving through a tunnel of old-growth forest, the kind where the trees are so massive and ancient they block out most of the daylight. Some of these trunks are 15 feet across, covered in moss so thick it looks like green fur. And the understory is a tangle of ferns and nurse logs and shadows that seem to absorb your headlights. Your phone has no signal up here, which you expected, and the GPS is still frozen on a blue dot in the middle of gray nothingness. You're committed now because there's no place wide enough to turn around, so you keep going, following the twin ruts that constitute the road. The forest changes as you drive deeper. The trees get older, bigger, spaced farther apart, but somehow more oppressive in their scale. You pass one western red cedar that must be 1,000 years old, its base wider than your car. And you notice something odd. There are marks on it, deep gouges in the bark running vertically, too high off the ground to be from any animal you know. The next tree has them too, and the next, like something massive has been scraping against them, or maybe trying to push them over. You slow down, peering through the rain-streaked windshield, and realize you haven't seen any wildlife since you turned onto this road. No deer, no birds, nothing moving except the slight sway of branches in the wind. The road forks unexpectedly, and there's no sign, no indication which way goes through. You choose right because it looks slightly more traveled, though that might be wishful thinking. The ruts are deeper here and your car bounces through them, suspension creaking. You notice the trees on either side are even closer now, branches extending over the road and interlocking overhead to create that tunnel effect again. Except these branches weren't here before. You're sure of it. You've been watching the road carefully, and this section should be more open. But it's like the forest has grown inward, narrowing the passage. A branch scrapes along the passenger side with a screech that makes your teeth hurt. You stop the car and put it in park, engine idling. And you just sit there trying to make sense of the landscape. The road ahead continues into darkness, curving out of sight between massive trunks. Behind you, the road looks the same, maybe even narrower than you remember driving through. You've been on this logging road for 30 minutes now, and the attendant said it was a 15-minute shortcut. Your gas gauge shows 3/4 of a tank, which is fine. But there's something about the stillness here that's making your skin crawl. The rain has stopped, but you didn't notice when. The forest is absolutely silent. No wind, no bird calls, no rustling of small animals in the undergrowth. Just silence so complete it's like being in a soundproof room. You shift back into drive and continue forward. The trees keep getting closer. You're certain now this isn't your imagination. The road is definitely narrowing. What was a comfortable 12 feet across when you started is now barely 8 feet, and your side mirrors are brushing against moss-covered branches on both sides. The scraping sound is constant now, like fingernails on glass, and you can't avoid it because there's no room to maneuver. The road surface has deteriorated too, more roots breaking through, some of them thick as your arm and recent-looking, like they pushed up through the dirt yesterday. You have to slow to a crawl to navigate over them without bottoming out. That's when you see the tree across the road ahead. It's a hemlock, maybe 80 feet tall, lying across the ruts at a 45-degree angle. It's fresh, no rot, the needles still green, the wood white where it snapped. But there's no stump visible, no indication where it came from. It's just there, blocking your path completely, and the branches on either side of the road are too dense to drive around. You stop again, closer this time, and get out to assess the situation. The moment your feet hit the ground, the silence becomes even more oppressive. Your footsteps on the soft earth make no sound. Even your breathing seems muffled. You walk up to the fallen tree and examine it. The break is strange, splintered in a way that suggests it was twisted rather than blown over or cut. You look up at the canopy above, trying to spot where it fell from. But the trees are so tall and numerous, it's impossible to tell. What you do notice is that all the surrounding trees seem to be leaning inward slightly, toward the road, toward you. You tell yourself it's the angle, the way they grew. But when you walk back to your car and look again, they're definitely closer together than they were 2 minutes ago. The gap on either side of your vehicle has shrunk. You get back in the car and try to reverse, deciding this shortcut was a mistake. But when you shift into reverse and turn to look through the rear window, the road behind you is gone. Not blocked, not overgrown. Just gone. Where there were 2 clear ruts in the dirt extending back the way you came, there's now solid forest, thick undergrowth and fallen logs and tree trunks so close together, nothing larger than a rabbit could squeeze through. You're breathing faster now, hands shaking on the wheel. You shift back to drive and move forward to the fallen tree, then reverse again to check, and the road is still gone, vanished completely, like it never existed. The tree blocking your path forward creaks. You watch in the headlights as it slowly, deliberately, rolls slightly toward you. Not falling, not settling, but rotating in place like something is turning it. The branches scrape against the trees on either side with a sound like screaming wood. Your headlights flicker. The battery gauge on your dash drops suddenly from full to 3/4. The engine coughs once, rough, before smoothing out again. Around you, the forest has become a solid wall, trees pressed together so tightly you can't see between them. And you realize with absolute clarity that you're not on a road anymore. You're in a cage. You lay on the horn, holding it down, the sound blaring into the silence. Nothing changes. The trees don't react, don't move, but you swear they're closer. You can't see the sky anymore. Just a solid roof of branches and needles blocking out all light except what comes from your headlights. You turn off the engine to save gas, then immediately regret it because the darkness presses in like a physical weight and you start it again. The battery gauge drops to half. Your gas gauge shows half a tank now even though you've barely driven. Something is draining your car, drawing power and fuel, and you don't understand how. You try the doors, thinking maybe you can climb over the fallen tree and walk out. But the doors won't open. Not locked, not stuck. They just won't budge no matter how hard you push. The windows won't roll down. You're sealed inside, and the walls are getting closer. The trees on both sides are definitely pressing against your car now. You can feel it rocking slightly, hear the metal starting to creak. Moss is spreading across your windshield, growing in fast motion, delicate fronds reaching across the glass like fingers. You turn on the wipers, and they smear it around, but can't clear it. The view ahead darkens. The fallen tree in front of you splits open. No sound, no warning. It just cracks down the middle and something dark and wet spills out. Not sap, something thicker, and it's moving against gravity, spreading across the ground toward your tires. The roots you drove over earlier are rising up through the dirt around your car, forming a lattice underneath, and you feel the vehicle lift slightly, like it's being cradled or captured. The engine dies completely this time and won't restart no matter how many times you turn the key. Your phone screen lights up on the passenger seat, even though it's been dead for 20 minutes. No signal, but a message appears in the notification bar. You shouldn't have taken the shortcut. You're pounding on the windows now, screaming, and the sound doesn't carry at all, absorbed completely by the moss and wood and the terrible patience of the forest. The trees aren't just close anymore, they're touching your car, bark pressed against metal, and you hear branches cracking, but you can't tell if they're breaking or growing. The roots beneath you lift higher, and your car tilts forward at a shallow angle. Through the moss-covered windshield, you see the ground opening up, dirt pulling apart to reveal darkness underneath, a cavity in the earth that wasn't there before. Your headlights are dimming, battery almost gone, and in the failing light, you see movement between the trees. Not animals, not anything you have a name for. Just shapes that might be trunks or shadows, or something that learned to hold very still and wait. The forest has been here for 1,000 years, 10,000, and it doesn't like the road you drove in on, doesn't like the metal box you brought into its oldest, deepest section. This is Cathedral Grove, though no map will call it that, where the trees remember when there were no humans, no cars, no intrusions. And it intends to make sure you're not an intrusion for much longer. The roots pull your car down into the earth. It's slow, gentle almost, like being lowered into a grave by pallbearers who have all the time in the world. You're screaming, but no one will hear you because the nearest ranger station is 40 miles away, and the gas station attendant will tell the police she never mentioned any shortcut. Doesn't know what they're talking about, and besides, who takes unmarked logging roads in Olympic National Forest? Everyone knows some of those roads don't go anywhere. Some of them go into sections where the old growth is so ancient and uncut that it remembers being young, remembers what came before people, and it doesn't welcome reminders of what came after. Your phone lights up one more time as the roots cover your car completely. Another message. The forest keeps what enters too deep. The trees remember. Then the screen goes black and you're in absolute darkness, feeling the wood grow around and through the metal. Hearing the sounds of decomposition beginning, the car already becoming part of the forest floor. You think about the moss-covered shapes you saw on your way in, the odd mounds in the undergrowth that could have been boulders or stumps. You understand now they were neither. They were vehicles from other people who took shortcuts, who ignored the instinct that said turn back, who drove into the oldest sections where the rules are different, and the forest decides what stays and what becomes part of the endless cycle of growth and decay. The last thing you see before the moss completely covers the windshield is a root, thick and pale, pressing against the glass from outside. It moves with purpose, with something that might be curiosity or hunger or just the slow, inexorable patience of things that measure time. In centuries, the glass cracks in a spiderweb pattern. The root pushes through, and the forest begins the work of taking you apart, molecule by molecule, making you useful, making you part of the soil and the trees and the eternal twilight. In a year, moss will cover the mound where your car rests 15 feet below the surface. In 10 years, a sapling will grow from the nutrients you provided. In 100 years, that sapling will be a young tree, and maybe it will remember, in whatever way trees remember, the metal and glass and screaming that fed its roots. The shortcut didn't save you time. It took all the time you had left, and the forest isn't sorry. It doesn't know how to be sorry. It only knows how to grow and consume and wait for the next driver who thinks they know a better way through. You're heading east on I-90 through Washington, crossing from Seattle toward Spokane on a Wednesday afternoon in late October. The traffic is light once you pass North Bend, thinning out as the highway climbs toward Snoqualmie Pass. You've driven this route 100 times, know every rest stop and scenic viewpoint, and you're not paying much attention to the mile markers until you pass 237. Nothing unusual about it. Just a standard green rectangular sign with white numbers, reflecting your headlights as the afternoon clouds darken toward evening. You're about 15 miles past it, somewhere around marker 252, when you see it again. Mile marker 237. Same design, same placement on the right shoulder, but you definitely already passed it. You check your odometer out of habit, note the reading, and keep driving. The highway stretches ahead through evergreen forest, the Cascade Peaks visible to the north when the trees break. Traffic is still sparse, maybe one car every few minutes in either direction. The pavement is in good condition here, relatively new asphalt, white lines bright and clear. Everything looks normal except for that impossible mile marker now behind you for the second time. You keep track this time, watching the odometer carefully. 23 miles later, according to your dashboard, you pass mile marker 237 again. The sign looks identical. Same font, same reflective coating, positioned exactly where a mile marker should be on the interstate. But the pavement around it looks slightly more weathered than you remember from the first two sightings. Small cracks spiderweb through the asphalt near the shoulder. The white edge line has a few gaps in it, paint worn away. You slow down, studying it in your rearview mirror as you pass, and you notice the guardrail beyond it has rust spots. Not extensive, just patches of orange against the silver metal. The next occurrence comes 18 miles later. Mile marker 237 again, but now the deterioration is more obvious. The pavement has significant cracking, the kind you see on poorly maintained rural highways, not major interstates. The shoulder gravel is scattered across the right lane in places. The guardrail is more rust than metal, sagging between posts. The trees behind it look dead. Needles brown and dropping, branches bare in spots. You pull into the right lane and slow way down, passing the marker at 30 miles per hour, and you see that someone has spray-painted graffiti on the back of it. Crude letters spelling something you can't quite read. You're unnerved now, checking your mirrors constantly, looking for other vehicles to confirm you're not hallucinating. A semi passes you going westbound, and you feel momentarily relieved by the normalcy of it. The highway ahead looks fine, well-maintained, trees healthy and green. But you know what's coming. 14 miles later, there it is. Mile marker 237, and the decay has accelerated. The pavement is badly cracked, potholes forming, the white lines almost completely faded. The guardrail has collapsed in sections. The trees are skeletal, every one of them dead or dying. And there's a vehicle on the shoulder just past the marker, an old sedan, hood up, covered in dust. You slow down, thinking about stopping to help, but something keeps you moving. The car looks too old, from the 80s maybe, and there's no one around it. Just sitting there abandoned like it's been there for years. The sky is darker now, even though it's only 4 in the afternoon. not storm clouds, just a general dimness, like the sun is setting prematurely. You pass a digital highway sign that should be displaying traffic information, but it's dark. Screen dead. Then another mile marker, 2:37, this time only 9 miles from the last one. The road surface is terrible here, more pothole than pavement, and you have to swerve to avoid the worst of them. The abandoned vehicles have multiplied. 3 cars on the shoulder now, all old, all degraded by weather and time. One is burned, just a blackened frame. The trees aren't just dead. They're falling over, leaning across the roadway, and you have to navigate around branches and trunks. The guardrail is completely gone, just rusty posts every few feet marking where it used to be. You're breathing faster, hands tight on the wheel, and you're trying to rationalize this. Some kind of construction loop maybe, detour you didn't notice, but you haven't turned off I-90. The highway signs still say I-90 East. The GPS is useless, frozen on a blue line that doesn't match what you're seeing. Your phone shows no signal, which is unusual but not impossible in the mountains. You tell yourself there's an explanation, has to be, but then you pass mile marker 237 again, and the world has tilted further into wrongness. The pavement is broken up completely now, reduced to chunks of asphalt with dirt and weeds growing through. The white lines are invisible under decades of neglect. There are dozens of vehicles on both shoulders and scattered across the lanes, forcing you to drive in a weaving pattern to get around them. They're rusted hulks, barely recognizable as cars, roofs collapsed, tires flat, windows blown out. Some of them are overturned. The trees are all down, lying across each other in tangled heaps, and beyond them, you can see the mountains, but they look wrong. The peaks are sharper, more jagged, or maybe just closer than they should be. The sky is the color of old bruises, purple and gray and sickly yellow. No sun visible, no source for the dim light that lets you see. The air outside your car looks thick somehow, like you could see it moving if you watched carefully. Your headlights are on now, automatic sensors triggered by the darkness, but they don't penetrate far. The beams seem to stop after 10 or 15 feet, absorbed by whatever the air has become. You pass more vehicles, and these ones are ancient. From the 70s and 60s, metal so deteriorated they're barely distinguishable from the landscape. Your odometer shows you've driven only 4 miles since the last marker. Mile marker 237 appears again, and you nearly crashed at trying to avoid it, because something is standing next to it. A figure, human-shaped but wrong proportions, too tall and too thin, and it doesn't move as you swerve past. You catch a glimpse in your peripheral vision, don't dare look directly, but you see enough to know it's not human. It's not anything. The marker itself is corroded, numbers barely visible, the metal post bent. The roadway is just broken concrete and exposed rebar now, the original asphalt completely gone. You're driving on what used to be the foundation, grinding over expansion joints and potholes that could break your axle. You try to turn around, looking for a median crossover or a gap in the center barrier. But the barrier isn't there anymore. Just a wasteland stretching away into darkness where the westbound lanes should be. No vehicles moving in either direction, no lights except your own, no sound except your engine and the crunch of debris under your tires. The mountains are definitely closer or taller, looming overhead like they're leaning in to watch. The sky is almost black now, that sick yellow color concentrated near the horizon like infected tissue around a wound. Another mile marker 237, just 2 miles from the last one. The figure is there again, or maybe a different one, standing perfectly still beside the sign. Then another figure further up the road. Then more. They line the highway at irregular intervals, all standing, all facing the road, all that same wrong shape. You keep your eyes forward, refuse to look at them directly, but you see them in your peripheral vision and in the mirrors, standing, watching, waiting for something. Your gas gauge is dropping faster than it should, already down to a quarter tank. The dashboard lights are flickering. The temperature gauge is climbing even though the engine sounds fine. Something is draining your car, pulling energy from it, and you push the accelerator harder, trying to maintain speed. The roadway is almost impassable now, just rubble and gaps, and you're bottoming out constantly, hearing metal scrape on concrete. Mile marker 237 appears after less than a mile this time, and the decay around it is absolute. No vegetation, no trees, just bare earth and rocks. The abandoned vehicles have been reduced to rust stains on the ground. The figures are closer now, some of them standing in the road itself. And you have to drive through where they stand. They don't move. You don't feel impact. They're just there, and then you're past them, and they're behind you. The mountains are touching the sky now, or the sky has lowered to meet them. You can't tell which. The darkness is complete, except for your failing headlights and a strange phosphorescence that seems to come from the ground itself. A greenish glow that outlines the rubble and the figures. You pass mile marker 237, and it's right there. You could reach out and touch it if you open the window, appearing every quarter mile now. Each time the world is more broken, more reduced, less like anything you recognize. Your engine is coughing, stuttering, dying despite the gas remaining in the tank. The electrical system is failing, dashboard going dark, headlights dimming to almost nothing. You're rolling forward on momentum more than power, and when you see mile marker 237 again, you know it's the last time. Not because the pattern is ending, but because your car won't make it past this one. The marker is pristine, brand new, numbers bright and clear, and beyond it the road just stops. Not a cliff, not a barrier, just nothing. The pavement ends in a perfect line, and beyond it is void. Absolute emptiness. The absence of everything. The figures are crowding around your car now, dozens of them, hundreds, pressing close but not touching. Your engine dies. The lights go out. In the darkness, you hear something massive moving, something that sounds like it's tearing through the fabric of space itself. And you understand finally what you've been approaching. Mile marker 237 is a marker in more ways than one. It marks the place where something ended, or will end, or is ending now, over and over. And you've been driving toward it through progressively destroyed versions of the same location. The figures part, and you see it in that greenish glow from the ground. Something vast and impossible, too large to comprehend, existing in too many dimensions at once. It's what made the marker repeat. What caused the decay, what's waiting at the real mile marker 237 when you finally reach it. Except you can't tell if you ever really left Seattle or if you've been driving through the same stretch of highway as it degrades through time, witnessing entropy accelerated to a crawl and stretched across miles. Your car door opens on its own. You didn't unlock it, didn't touch the handle, but it swings wide and the void beyond is calling. Not with sound, but with absence, with the promise of finally stopping, of not having to keep passing mile marker 237 over and over into infinity. The figures are still watching. The massive thing behind them writhes and shifts, and you realize it's been here the whole time, at this specific point on I-90. And the mile marker is a warning that nobody read correctly. Not a distance marker, a boundary marker. This far and no further. You step out of the car because what else is there to do? The The ground feels solid under your feet, but it's the wrong texture, slightly yielding, and it's warm when it should be cold at this elevation in October. You walk toward the void beyond the marker, passing between the figures, and they turn to follow your movement with something that isn't sight because they don't have eyes. You reach the edge where the road stops, and you look back one time. Your car is already half dissolved, melting into rust and residue. And beyond it, the world you came from is receding like a memory, getting smaller and less detailed. Mile marker 237 stands behind you, still pristine, still marking this exact point. You wonder how many others have driven this route, how many saw the pattern and turned back in time, how many didn't. In the morning, if morning means anything here, a maintenance crew will find your car on the shoulder near mile marker 237, the real one, back in the world where I-90 is just a highway. They'll file a report about an abandoned vehicle. They'll run the plates and try to find you. They won't. Because you're still here, at every mile marker 237 that ever was or will be, standing with the other figures who drove too far and saw too much. Standing and watching and waiting for the next driver who doesn't turn around when they see the same marker twice. And in the void behind you, the thing that exists at the end of all roads continues its patient work of pulling everything toward the center, toward the point where distance becomes meaningless and all markers read 2137 forever. The fuel light comes on just past Grants Pass, that orange warning glowing accusingly on your dashboard as you drive I-5 through southern Oregon at 3 in the morning. You've been on the road for 9 hours, driving from San Francisco to Seattle, and you miscalculated how far you could stretch this tank. The next town is Medford, still 20 miles north. But there's a rest stop coming up in 2 miles according to the green sign you just passed. You take the exit, following the curve of the off-ramp into darkness broken only by the orange sodium lights of the rest area ahead. The parking lot is surprisingly full for this hour. You count at least 8 vehicles as you pull in, a mix of sedans and SUVs and 1 minivan, all scattered across the spaces near the bathroom facilities. Several have their headlights still on, engines running, that distinctive rumble of idling motors audible even through your closed windows. You park near the entrance to the restrooms, leaving your own engine on while you assess the situation. The lights are all working, those harsh fluorescent tubes that turn everything slightly green, and the facility looks well maintained, modern even, with brick facades and covered walkways. What's strange is that you don't see anyone. All these vehicles with their doors hanging open, interior lights glowing, engines running, but no people visible. No one walking to or from the bathrooms. No one standing outside smoking or stretching their legs. No one on their phones near the picnic tables. Just empty cars humming in the night, with that peculiar feeling of recent abandonment, like everyone stepped away simultaneously 30 seconds before you arrived. You turn off your engine, and the sudden silence is broken only by those other vehicles still running and a transformer somewhere buzzing with electrical current. You get out slowly, listening, looking around the parking lot for any sign of movement. The minivan nearest you has a child's car seat in the back, toys scattered across the seat, and a sippy cup still sitting in the cup holder. The driver's door is wide open, keys dangling from the ignition. Beyond it, a Honda sedan has its trunk open, suitcase visible inside like someone was in the middle of rearranging their luggage. A pickup truck has a coffee cup on the hood, steam still rising from it, which means it was set there within the last few minutes. The asphalt is damp from earlier rain, and you can see footprints leading from various vehicles toward the bathroom building, dozens of them, overlapping, all heading in the same direction. You walk toward the restroom entrance, your footsteps echoing off the concrete, and you call out asking if anyone's there. Your voice sounds flat, absorbed by the fog that's rolling across the parking lot from the forested areas beyond. The restroom door is propped open with a rubber wedge, and the lights inside are on. You can see the row of sinks, the industrial tile, everything, clean and ordinary. You step inside and immediately notice the bathroom stalls, 3 of them, and all 3 have feet visible under the doors. Shoes pointing forward, people standing there, and relief washes over you because you're not alone after all. You say hello again, more confidently now, and wait for a response. Nothing. The feet don't move. You wait another 10 seconds, and still nothing. No sound of anyone using the facilities, no rustle of clothing, no toilet paper dispensing. Just those 3 pairs of feet absolutely motionless under the stall doors. Your heart starts beating faster. You knock on the first stall door and ask if everything's okay. No answer. You push the door gently and it swings open, revealing an empty stall. Completely empty. But you saw feet under that door, you're certain of it. Sneakers and jeans visible below the partition. You back up looking at the other stalls, and the feet are gone from those too. All 3 stalls standing open now, all 3 empty, but you distinctly remember seeing occupied shoes under those doors. You're breathing harder, that first spike of real fear pushing through the confusion, and you turn to leave the restroom. That's when you see the women's room across the walkway, and its door is also propped open. Against your better judgment, you look inside and see the same thing. 4 stalls, feet visible under 2 of them. But when you call out and there's no response, you don't check those stalls. You back away instead, returning to the parking lot. The vehicles are still running, still idling peacefully with their doors open. But now you notice details you missed before. A phone sitting on the hood of a sedan, screen illuminated, music playing softly from the speaker, someone's playlist still running. A bag of fast food in one of the cars, fries scattered across the passenger seat, burger half unwrapped, still warm when you carefully touch the paper. Reading glasses folded on a dashboard, a jacket draped over a door, a wallet on the ground near the minivan, credit cards visible in the leather fold. Everything suggesting people who intended to return immediately, who stepped away for just a moment. You look at the footprints again in the damp pavement, following their trail. They all lead from the vehicles toward the bathrooms, but then beyond the bathrooms, toward the picnic area and the tree line at the far edge of the rest stop. You walk slowly in that direction, following dozens of shoe prints, and they continue across the grass, becoming more defined in the muddy areas, all heading in the same direction toward the forest. Men's shoes, women's shoes, different sizes, different patterns, but all moving together, like a crowd walking purposefully toward something. The prints lead to the edge of the tree line, and then they stop. Not gradually, not spreading out or turning different directions. They just end in a rough line about 15 feet from the first row of trees. Like everyone who left those prints reached this exact point and then ceased to exist. You stand at that line, staring into the dark forest, and you can't see more than a few feet into the shadows. The fog is thicker here, rolling between the trunks, and there's a smell you can't quite identify. Something organic but wrong, like ozone and decay mixed together. You back away from the tree line, returning to the parking lot, and you're pulling out your phone to call 911 when you hear it. A sound from the forest, distant but distinct, like someone calling out. Or maybe multiple people, voices layered over each other, but too far away to distinguish words. You freeze, listening, and the sound comes again. Definitely voices, and they might be calling for help. You walk back toward the tree line, phone in hand, flashlight app activated, and you shine the light into the forest. The beam penetrates maybe 20 feet before being swallowed by fog and darkness. The voices stop. Complete silence now, not even wind in the trees, and you realize with creeping horror that the forest is too quiet. No insects, no nocturnal animals, no rustle of leaves or crack of branches, just oppressive stillness, and in that stillness you become aware of something watching you. You can't see it, can't identify what or where, but you feel the weight of attention, something massive and patient observing you from the darkness between the trees. The air feels heavier suddenly, pressing against your skin, and when you breathe, it tastes metallic. You return to your car quickly, getting inside and locking the doors, and you're dialing 911 when your engine dies. You didn't turn it off, didn't touch the key, but it cuts out completely and the dashboard goes dark. Your phone shows no signal suddenly, dropping from 4 bars to nothing. And the screen dims despite being fully charged moments ago. Around you, the other vehicles begin shutting off one by one, engines dying, headlights extinguishing, interior lights fading, until the parking lot is illuminated only by those harsh fluorescent overhead lights. And then those start flickering. You try to restart your car, turning the key frantically, but nothing happens. Dead battery, dead electronics, everything unresponsive. The other vehicles are the same. You can see people's headlights dark, interiors black, and the silence is absolute now. No engine sounds, no electrical hum, just you breathing too fast in the confined space of your car, watching the overhead lights flicker more erratically. In the stuttering illumination, you see something moving near the tree line. Shadows that don't match the rhythm of the flickering lights. Shapes that are there during the dark moments and gone when the lights come back. The lights go out completely. Total darkness, the kind you don't experience in developed areas. No ambient light from nearby cities or passing traffic. Just absolute black. You can't see your hand in front of your face. You can't see the steering wheel or the dashboard or the windshield. And in that darkness, you hear footsteps, multiple sets, walking across the pavement, coming from the direction of the forest. Slow, measured, not quite synchronized, and they're getting closer. You hold your breath, pressing back against your seat, and the footsteps continue past your car, circling it maybe, or moving between all the vehicles, checking each one. Your door handle rattles. Someone or something is trying to open it from outside, testing the lock. And you hear the same sound from the other doors, all 4 handles being tested simultaneously. The car rocks slightly as weight presses against it, hands or something else pushing on the roof and hood and trunk. Your phone screen lights up spontaneously, no bars, no connection, but illuminating the interior of your car for just a second, long enough to see a face pressed against your driver's side window, pale and wrong, features arranged in almost human configuration, but not quite right, eyes too large and too dark, mouth too wide. Then the screen goes black again. The overhead parking lot lights come back on suddenly all at once, bright and steady now, and you scream at the sudden illumination. You're looking out your window expecting to see that face, but there's nothing there, just empty parking lot. The other abandoned vehicles, the bathroom facilities, exactly as they were. The transformer is buzzing normally. The fog is still rolling across the pavement. Everything looks normal except for the absence of people and the silence of all those dead vehicles. Your car starts on the first try when you turn the key, engine catching and rumbling to life, and your phone shows full signal again. You throw the car into reverse and peel out of the parking spot, tires squealing on the damp asphalt, and you're heading for the exit ramp back to I-5 as fast as you can drive. In your rearview mirror, you see the rest stop receding, those overhead lights bright and normal. The abandoned vehicle still sitting there with doors open, and you swear you see figures standing near the tree line now, maybe 8 or 10 of them, standing perfectly still, watching you leave. You hit I-5 and accelerate north, pushing 80, 90, not caring about speed limits, just needing distance. The fuel light is still on, but you don't care. You drive until you reach Medford, pull into the first 24-hour gas station you find, and you sit under the fluorescent canopy with your hands shaking on the wheel. There are other people here, real people. A tired cashier visible through the window, another driver pumping gas, and you nearly cry with relief at the normalcy. You fill your tank and go inside to pay, and you mention the rest stop to the cashier, ask if there have been any reports of problems there. She gives you a strange look and asks what rest stop. You describe it, the mile marker, the location, and she shakes her head. Says there's no rest stop between Grants Pass and Medford on I-5. Hasn't been one there in years. They closed it back in 2003 after those disappearances. You ask what disappearances, and she tells you about the 9 people who vanished from that rest stop over one weekend in October 2003. Different times, different days, but all from that same location. Vehicles found running, doors open, personal belongings undisturbed, but the people just gone. No bodies, no evidence of foul play, no explanation. State police investigated for months, found nothing, and eventually they closed the rest stop permanently, tore down the facilities, barricaded the entrance. She says it's just trees there now, been reclaimed by the forest. Though some truck drivers claim they still see lights there late at night. See the rest stop exactly as it was. But nobody with any sense stops there anymore. You don't tell her you stopped there. You don't mention the feet under the bathroom stalls, or the footprints leading to the tree line, or the face at your window. You just pay for your gas and leave, driving north through the rest of the night with your doors locked and your speed steady. And you don't take any exits until you reach Salem at dawn. When you look at your phone, you have a voicemail from a number you don't recognize. No area code, just zeros. You delete it without listening. You know what it would say. Know it would be those voices you heard from the forest. Maybe closer this time, maybe clearer. And you don't want to know what they're calling for or whether they're calling you back. You reach Seattle by noon, and you tell yourself it was exhaustion, highway hypnosis, some kind of elaborate stress hallucination from too many hours driving. But when you check your car later that week, you find a handprint on the driver's side window, on the outside, where that face was pressed against the glass. It's not a human handprint. Too many fingers, wrong proportions, and it won't wash off no matter what you use. It's still there, faint but visible. A permanent reminder that some rest stops on dark highways don't really exist anymore. And the things that wait at those impossible places are still looking for travelers to complete the collection they started 20 years ago. 9 disappeared in 2003. You could have been number 10, and somewhere on a stretch of I-5 that doesn't have a rest stop, those vehicles are still sitting in that parking lot with their engines running, doors open, waiting for the next person who sees lights where lights shouldn't be, and makes the mistake of pulling off the highway at 3 a.m. when the rules are different and the forest is hungry. The rain comes down so hard on Highway 12 through the Cascades that you almost don't see her standing there on the shoulder, thumb out, soaked through to the skin. It's nearly 9 at night, and you've been driving for 6 hours, trying to get back to Yakima before midnight. And every instinct says, don't stop, don't pick up hitchhikers on mountain highways in the dark. But she's just standing there in the downpour, no jacket, no umbrella. And you think about your own daughter, who's about the same age, early 20s maybe, and what you'd want someone to do if she was stranded. You slow down, pull onto the shoulder about 20 feet past her, and unlock the doors. She gets in the back seat without saying anything, which strikes you as odd because most hitchhikers sit up front to make conversation, to seem less threatening. You glance in the rearview mirror as she settles in behind the passenger seat, and you catch a glimpse of dark hair plastered to her face, pale skin, clothes that look like they've been wet for hours. You ask where she's heading, and she doesn't respond. You try again, louder over the sound of rain hammering on the roof, asking if she's okay, if she needs you to take her to a hospital or police station. Still nothing. Just the sound of rain and your wipers working frantically and your own breathing getting slightly faster. You pull back onto Highway 12 and accelerate carefully, the road slick and winding through dense forest. The headlights barely penetrate the rain, catching the white line occasionally before it disappears into darkness. You adjust the rearview mirror to get a better look at your passenger, thinking maybe she's in shock, traumatized by whatever happened to leave her out here. She's sitting perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, staring straight ahead at the back of your seat. Her hair hangs in wet strands around her face, and her clothes are dripping onto your upholstery, forming a puddle on the floor. You can see her in the mirror, but something about her posture is wrong, too rigid, like a mannequin positioned in a seat. You try conversation again, introducing yourself, explaining you're heading to Yakima and asking where you can drop her off. No response, not even acknowledgement that you spoke. Her eyes don't blink, don't move, just fixed on that point behind your head. The temperature in the car is dropping despite the heater running full blast, and you can see your breath starting to fog in the glow of the dashboard lights. You reach over and turn the heat up higher, but it doesn't help. The cold is coming from behind you, from the back seat, and you realize you can't hear her breathing. The car is filled with the sound of rain and engine and your own respiration. But from her, nothing. You glance in the rearview mirror again, and your heart jumps because she's not there. The back seat is empty, just wet upholstery and that puddle of water on the floor. But no passenger. You nearly swerve off the road, craning your neck to look directly into the back seat. And she's there again, sitting exactly where she was. Same position, same blank stare. But when you look at her in the mirror, the back seat is empty. You look back again directly, and she's there. Mirror shows empty seat. Direct view shows passenger. Your hands are shaking on the wheel, and the cold is intensifying, frost forming on the inside of the windows despite the heater. You should stop, pull over, tell her to get out. But you're on a narrow mountain highway with no shoulder and a steep drop on one side. And somehow the idea of stopping, of being stationary with whatever this is in your car, seems worse than keeping moving. You focus on the road, on just driving, trying to ignore the presence behind you. The miles tick by slowly, 10 minutes, 15, and nothing changes. She doesn't move, doesn't speak, doesn't breathe. The cold keeps getting worse. Your windows are completely frosted over now, except for the small circle cleared by the defroster, and you're driving nearly blind through the rain. You pass a sign saying White Pass Summit 8 miles ahead, and you decide that's where you'll stop, at the summit, where there's sometimes other traffic even at night. Just 8 more miles with this thing in your back seat. Except now you can feel it, a presence directly behind your head. And you swear something is breathing on the back of your neck, despite there being no breath sounds. Cold air touching your skin, regular intervals, like breathing but without sound. Your rearview mirror still shows an empty back seat. You don't dare turn around. The radio turns on by itself, no music or voices, just static that rises and falls in rhythm with that silent breathing on your neck. You reach out to turn it off, and the knob comes off in your hand. But the static continues. Your phone on the dashboard lights up showing a call from your own number, which is impossible because your phone is right there. The frost on the windows is forming patterns now, not random, but shapes that might be faces or hands or something else pressed against the glass from inside. The temperature gauge on your dash is dropping, showing the engine temperature falling despite being warmed up, like something is drawing all the heat from the vehicle. You're 5 miles from the summit when you see headlights approaching from ahead, another vehicle coming the opposite direction. And you've never been so relieved to see another human being. You flash your high beams frantically as the vehicle approaches, some kind of SUV, trying to signal distress, trying to get them to stop. But they pass without slowing, headlights cutting through the rain and disappearing behind you. And in that brief moment of illumination, you saw something in your rearview mirror. Not an empty seat, not the girl. Something else entirely. Something large and dark and folded into that small space. Something that couldn't possibly fit in a car, but was there anyway. Your accelerator stops responding. You're pressing it to the floor, but the car is slowing down, engine still running but losing power. And you're coasting now on a slight uphill grade, which means you'll stop completely in moments. You try the brakes and they don't work either. Nothing works. The car is operating on its own rules now, and those rules say you're stopping here, 3 miles from the summit, on this empty stretch of mountain highway, in the rain and dark, with something wrong in your back seat. The vehicle rolls to a stop in the middle of the road, engine idling, headlights still on, wipers still moving, but everything else dead. The breathing on your neck stops. The cold, which had been getting progressively worse, suddenly intensifies beyond anything you've experienced, like being flash frozen, and ice forms on your skin wherever the breath was touching. You can't move, can't turn around. Frozen in place either by temperature or fear or something else. And in the rearview mirror you watch as something moves in the back seat. Not the girl, not anymore, but something that wears her shape badly. Like a costume that doesn't quite fit. It shifts and unfolds, becoming larger, and you realize with absolute horror that what you picked up wasn't a person at all, but something that learned to look enough like a person to get invited into vehicles. Your doors lock themselves, all 4 clicking simultaneously, and your windows frost over completely, eliminating all view of the outside world. You're sealed in with it, in this metal box on an empty highway, and you can see it moving behind you in the mirror, even though the mirror showed empty space before. It's reaching forward now. Something that might be a hand, or might be several hands, too many fingers, too many joints, and it's moving toward the back of your seat, toward where your head is, slowly and deliberately, like it has all the time in the world. You find your voice and scream. Finally. And the sound fills the car, but goes nowhere, absorbed by the frost and the rain and the thing behind you. You're clawing at the door handle, but it won't open, won't budge, and the hand or hands are touching the back of your seat now. You can feel the pressure through the upholstery, can feel cold radiating through the fabric. Your phone rings again, your own number calling, and without thinking, you answer it, putting it on speaker. And your own voice comes through, but wrong, pitched wrong, words inverted. Don't look back, don't look back, don't look back. But you do. You turn around in your seat and look directly at what's behind you, because not knowing seems worse than knowing. And in the moment before, your mind refuses to process what it's seeing. You understand that it's not from here, not from this world or this reality. Something that exists in spaces between spaces and sometimes manifests on dark highways when conditions are right. It wears shapes it's seen before, people it's collected. and it waits for someone to be kind enough to open a door and invite it in. You were not the first. The vehicles you passed abandoned on earlier roads, the hitchhiker reports from this highway going back decades, they all end here, with someone looking back and seeing what you're seeing now. The last coherent thought you have is wondering how long it's been standing on that shoulder, wearing that girl's appearance, waiting for someone sympathetic enough to stop. Days, weeks, years. It doesn't experience time like you do. It's patient in ways human minds can't comprehend. And now it's here, in your car, and you realize the vehicle isn't your space anymore. You're in its space, have been since she got in. Since you crossed that threshold from helping a stranger to inviting something ancient and hungry into an enclosed area where no one can hear and no one will find you until morning, if they find you at all. Your consciousness is fragmenting, breaking apart under the weight of what you're looking at. And the last thing you're aware of is the sensation of being pulled backward, not physically, but essentially. Being drawn into the space where it exists, that cold, dark place between here and there. Your body will be found in the morning still sitting in the driver's seat of your car, parked in the middle of Highway 12, engine running, doors locked, windows frosted over. The authorities will rule it hypothermia, will wonder why you stopped in the middle of the road, why you didn't try to get out, why you just sat there and froze. They won't see the marks on the back seat, the patterns in the frost that show too many hands, too many faces pressed against the glass. And 3 miles down the road, near White Pass Summit, someone else will see a figure standing in the rain, thumb out, looking stranded and desperate. Maybe a young woman, maybe someone different, whatever shape it thinks will work this time. And someone kind will stop, thinking about their daughter or sister or just about doing the right thing. They'll unlock their doors. They'll say, "Get in, get warm. Where are you heading?" And it will climb into the back seat without speaking, and the temperature will start to drop, and the cycle will continue as it has for decades on this stretch of highway, where the rules are different after dark and kindness can be a fatal mistake. Your car sits there until a state trooper finds it at 6 in the morning. You're inside, frozen solid, eyes open and staring at the rearview mirror, expression suggesting you saw something no human should see. The back seat is empty, but soaking wet, puddles on the floor, and the upholstery has marks pressed into it like someone sat there for hours. The trooper calls it in as another unexplained death on Highway 12, the 4th one this year. All of them the same. Single driver, stopped in the middle of the road, frozen despite running heater, no signs of foul play. The case will go, unsolved like the others. The highway will stay open. And tonight, when the rain comes down hard through the Cascades, someone else will see a figure standing on the shoulder, and they'll have to decide whether kindness is worth the risk. Whether that stranded stranger is really what they appear to be, or whether some things should be left standing in the rain, no matter how human they look. You're driving south on Highway 101 between Brookings and Gold Beach around 10 at night. And the fog rolls in so thick and fast, it's like driving into a wall of cotton. One moment you can see the ocean to your right, black water churning against rocks. And the next moment there's nothing but white pressing against your windshield. You slow down to 30, then 25, because the road here hugs the coastline, and there are places where the shoulder just drops away into nothing, 200 feet straight down to the Pacific. The yellow center line disappears and reappears in your headlights, the only thing keeping you oriented on the pavement. The first figure appears so suddenly you nearly swerve off the road. It's standing about 15 feet from the edge of the pavement, just visible through the fog, a dark silhouette that could be a person or maybe a tree stump or a road sign. But then you pass it, and in your peripheral vision, You see it's definitely human-shaped, standing perfectly still, facing the road. You tell yourself it's a hitchhiker or someone whose car broke down. But something stops you from turning around to offer help. Maybe it's the posture, too rigid. Or maybe it's the way the fog seems thicker around it, like the figure is generating its own weather. You drive another quarter-mile, and there's another one. Same distance from the road, same motionless stance, same wrong feeling about it. This one is on the left side, the ocean side, which should be impossible because there's no shoulder there, just cliff edge and rocks below. But there it stands, and you can't see any detail through the fog, just a dark outline that might be wearing clothes or might be made of something else entirely. Your hands tighten on the wheel, and you press the accelerator slightly, wanting to put distance between you and whatever you're seeing. The figures start appearing more frequently. One every few hundred feet, alternating sides of the road, always standing, always facing toward you. By the time you've gone 2 miles, you've counted 11 of them, and you're starting to notice details that make your skin crawl. They're not all the same height. Some are impossibly tall, 7 or 8 feet, while others are child-sized. None of them move as you pass. None of them have visible faces, just that suggestion of a head on shoulders, features erased by distance and fog and darkness. The ocean sound is getting louder, waves crashing against the cliffs. But you can't see the water anymore. Can't see anything except the road directly in front of you, and these accumulating figures watching from the fog. You try the radio, but it's all static. That particular Pacific Northwest static that sounds almost like voices if you listen long enough. You turn it off. Your phone shows 1 bar of signal, then none, then 1 again, fluctuating. The GPS has frozen, showing your position miles back where the fog started, like you haven't moved at all despite driving for 15 minutes. The figures are closer now, not 15 feet from the road, but 10, then 8. And they're appearing more densely, 1 every 30 feet, then every 20. You're driving through a corridor of watchers, and the fog is so thick your headlights barely penetrate 5 feet ahead. The road curves, and you take it too fast, tires squealing, because you're not paying attention to driving anymore. You're watching the figures. They're definitely closer, maybe 6 feet from the pavement now. And there are dozens of them, hundreds maybe, stretching away into the fog on both sides. You catch glimpses of detail in your headlights as you pass, and what you see makes no sense. One of them has too many arms, limbs hanging at wrong angles. Another is bent backward at the waist, head facing the wrong direction. A third seems to be floating slightly above the ground, no legs visible below the torso. You're breathing fast now. Shallow gasps, and your vision is starting to blur from the combination of fog and fear and the hypnotic repetition of figure after figure after figure. The painted white edge line on your right disappears completely, and you drift. Feel your tire hit gravel, and you jerk the wheel left, overcorrecting. For a terrifying moment, you think you're going to hit one of the figures. You're aimed right at it. But at the last second, you swerve, and it's beside your car, so close you could touch it if your window was open. And in that instant of proximity, you see that it has no face at all. Just smooth skin or fog or something else where features should be. The figures are at the edge of the road now, toes touching the pavement if they have toes, and you're slaloming between them, trying not to look directly at any of them, because every time you do, you see something wrong, something that violates what humans should look like. They're multiplying impossibly fast, appearing every few feet now. And you realize with crawling horror that they're not just on the sides of the road anymore. One is in your lane, 20 feet ahead, and you swerve around it, horn blaring uselessly into the fog. Then another in the road, and another, and you're weaving between them, missing them by inches. Your car clips one and you feel the impact, soft but definite, like hitting a bag of leaves, and you scream because you just hit a person. You just committed vehicular manslaughter. But when you check the mirror, there's nothing behind you. No body in the road, just fog and more figures standing at the edges. You hit another one, unavoidable. It steps into your path too quickly. And again that soft impact. And again, nothing in your mirror. They're not solid. Or there's something that exists in a state between solid and not. And you're driving through them like they're projections, or ghosts, or warnings. The ocean sound is overwhelming now. Louder than your engine, louder than your breathing. Waves crashing so violently you can feel the vibration through the road. But you still can't see the water. Can't see anything except fog and figures. And the figures are surrounding you completely now. Filling every space, pressed against your car on both sides. You can hear them scraping against the metal, soft sounds like fingernails on glass or cloth dragging across paint. Your side mirrors show nothing but white fog and dark shapes. So many shapes you can't distinguish individual figures anymore. Just a mass of them moving alongside your vehicle. You press the accelerator harder, pushing 50, 60, too fast for the conditions, but you need to get through this. Need to break free of whatever pocket of wrong you've driven into. The speedometer climbs to 70 and the figures blur past, and you're starting to think you're going to make it, going to outrun them when you see what's ahead. The fog lifts slightly, visibility extending maybe 30 feet, and the road in front of you is completely blocked. They're standing across both lanes, shoulder to shoulder, dozens deep, a solid wall of those featureless silhouettes. And they're not moving, not parting, just waiting. You slam on the brakes and the car skids on the damp pavement, fishtailing, and you're going to hit them. There's no way to stop in time. And you're bracing for impact when the fog drops again like a curtain, visibility reduced to nothing, and you feel the car slow and stop mere inches from something. You can't see what. Your headlights show only white fog and shadows that might be figures or might be nothing. The engine is still running, but when you try to accelerate, the wheels spin uselessly, no traction, like you're on ice. You try reverse and same result, just wheels spinning, going nowhere. The figures press closer. You can see them now through every window surrounding the car, dozens of them. Those smooth, featureless faces turned toward you. They're touching the car, hands or whatever they have, pressing against the glass and metal. And everywhere they touch, frost forms, spreading in delicate patterns. The temperature inside the vehicle drops rapidly, your breath visible, and the windows are fogging from inside, despite the defroster running. You try the door locks, and they click closed, then open again on their own, then closed, then open, cycling rapidly like they can't decide which position to hold. One of the figures moves closer to your driver's side window, face pressed against the glass, and you're looking directly at where its eyes should be, but there's nothing there. Just smooth surface, and its mouth opens, or appears to open. A dark hole forming in the blankness, and you hear sound. Ik. Not through the window, but inside your head. A voice that might be speaking words, or might be the ocean, or might be wind through empty spaces. It's saying something, the same phrase repeated, and you strain to understand. Join us in the gray. Join us in the gray. Join us in the gray. More voices join though. First, a chorus of them, all saying the same thing, and you realize they're coming from all the figures surrounding your car, dozens of voices penetrating directly into your mind without passing through your ears. Join us in the gray. The fog is inside the car now somehow. Wisps of it curling around your feet, rising around your legs, cold and damp and invasive. You're screaming, but you can't hear yourself over the voices, over the ocean sound, over the overwhelming presence of these things that want you to join them in whatever state they exist in. The fog rises higher, chest level now, and you can feel it touching your skin like wet fingers, exploratory, curious, and everywhere it touches, you feel less solid, less present, like you're becoming fog yourself. The figures are closer, pressing against the windows so densely you can't see between them. And their hands are reaching through the glass like it's not there, like they're not bound by the same rules that govern solid matter. You try to swat them away, but your own hands pass through them, and you feel cold. Such profound cold that your bones ache. And you realize you're changing, converting from flesh to whatever substance these things are made from. The fog lifts suddenly, instantly, and you're gasping for air that's clear and cold and real. The figures are gone. Every single one of them vanished like they were never there. Your car is still running, parked in the middle of Highway 101, and you can see the ocean now, black water reflecting moonlight, and the road stretches ahead, empty and normal. You check the mirrors, check every window, and there's nothing. No figures, no fog, just a clear October night on the Oregon coast. But your windows are frosted over from the inside, and when you breathe on the glass to wipe it away, you see handprints. Dozens of them, pressed into the frost from inside the car. You drive slowly to Gold Beach, making it to town 15 minutes later, and you park under the brightest street light you can find near a 24-hour diner. Inside, you order coffee and sit shaking in a corner booth, and you're trying to rationalize what happened. Exhaustion hallucination, carbon monoxide from a leak in the car, some kind of localized weather phenomenon. But your clothes are damp like you've been in fog, and your skin is pale, almost gray in the harsh diner lighting, and you're so cold that 3 cups of coffee don't warm you up. The waitress asks if you're okay, and you tell her you drove through some heavy fog, and she gives you a strange look. Says the weather's been clear all night, not a bit of fog reported anywhere on the coast. You check the weather app on your phone and she's right. No fog advisory, no mention of reduced visibility. But you were in it, drove through miles of it, and the figures, you saw them, hundreds of them. You finish your coffee and walk out to your car, and in the parking lot lighting you see that the exterior is covered in a fine layer of salt residue, like you drove through ocean spray. But the highway doesn't run that close to the water between Brookings and Gold Beach. And when you open the door, there's something on the driver's seat that wasn't there before. A stone, smooth and gray, about the size of a fist, and it's wet, dripping with seawater. You pick it up and it's ice cold, and there are marks on it, grooves worn into the surface that might be writing or might be natural erosion. You throw it into the parking lot and get in your car and drive to the nearest hotel, checking in and locking yourself in the room. But when you empty your pockets later, the stone is there, sitting on the dresser, still wet, still cold. You didn't bring it. You threw it away. But here it is. And the grooves are definitely intentional. Definitely words in some language you don't recognize. And when you touch them, you hear that voice again. Faint, but present. Join us in the gray. You drive home the next day using I-5, avoiding Highway 101 completely. And you never tell anyone what happened because how could you explain it? But the stone stays with you, appearing in your house even when you dispose of it. And on foggy nights, you see them sometimes. Standing in your yard at the edge of visibility, waiting patiently. They never come closer, Never enter your house, just wait and watch. And you understand that they're reminding you that you were invited, that you drove through their territory and felt what it was like to almost join them. And someday, maybe when you're old or sick or just too tired to resist, you'll go back to that stretch of coast and the fog will roll in, and you'll walk into it willingly. And you'll become one of the figures that stand beside Highway 101 in the mist, waiting for the next driver who sees too much and doesn't turn back fast enough. Your GPS reroutes you off Highway 20 in eastern Washington around 7 in the evening, claiming there's an accident ahead that will add 2 hours to your drive. The detour takes you onto smaller roads, 2-lane highways cutting through wheat fields and scrubland, and you're following the blue line on your phone screen without really paying attention to where you're going. The sun is setting, painting the plateau country in shades of gold and amber. And you're thinking about the hotel reservation in Spokane you're probably going to miss when the GPS tells you to take exit 43. There's no exit number posted, just a plain off-ramp curving away from the highway. And you hesitate for a second before taking it because something feels off about following directions from a phone that's been glitchy all day. But you take the exit anyway, and the road leads you through a quarter-mile of empty land before the town appears suddenly, like it was hiding behind the landscape. It's small, maybe 20 blocks total, with a main street running down the center and residential areas spreading out on either side. Everything looks immaculately maintained, almost artificially perfect, like a movie set or a model train layout scaled up to life size. You drive slowly down Main Street, looking for a gas station or somewhere to ask about getting back to the highway, and you notice details that strike you as unusual. All the storefronts are occupied, no empty businesses or boarded windows, and they all look freshly painted in cheerful pastels. There's a hardware store with tools arranged in the window display with geometric precision, a diner with red vinyl booths visible through spotless glass, a pharmacy with vintage signage that looks brand new. The sidewalks are swept clean. The street trees are pruned identically, and the few vehicles parked along the curbs are all domestic makes from the last 5 years. Nothing older, nothing exotic. What's really strange is the people. There are maybe a dozen of them visible on the sidewalks and in storefronts, and they're all smiling. Not casual smiles or polite expressions, but broad, sustained smiles that show too many teeth and don't quite reach their eyes. A woman sweeping outside the bakery sees you drive past and waves enthusiastically, holding the gesture long after you've passed. 2 men talking outside the hardware store both turn to watch your car, their conversation stopping mid-sentence. And they're smiling too. Identical expressions, like they practiced in a mirror. A group of people sitting at outdoor tables at the diner all turn simultaneously as you pass, tracking your movement with their heads while their bodies stay perfectly still. You find a gas station at the end of Main Street. A small independent operation with 2 pumps and a building that looks like it was built in the 50s but maintained obsessively. An attendant comes out before you've even turned off your engine. A man in his 30s or 40s or maybe 50s. It's hard to tell because his face has an ageless quality, smooth and unlined in a way that seems wrong. He's smiling that same too wide smile, and he's at your window before you can decide whether to stay or drive away. He greets you by name, which freezes you in place because you haven't told him your name, haven't spoken at all. And when you ask how he knows it, he just laughs and says small towns know everything. He starts pumping gas without asking how much you want, and he's talking the whole time, telling you how wonderful the town is, how friendly everyone is, how lucky you are to have found them. He asks where you're heading, and when you say Spokane, he shakes his head sympathetically and says, "That's so far, you must be tired. Why don't you stay the night at their lovely bed and breakfast just 2 blocks down?" You decline politely, saying you need to get back on the highway, and his smile doesn't waver, but something in his eyes shifts, a flicker of something that might be disappointment or might be calculation. He finishes pumping and tells you the total, which is impossibly low, half what gas should cost. And when you question it, he insists that's their price. You're pulling out your wallet when two more people approach, a woman and a man, both with that same ageless quality and that same unsettling smile. They introduce themselves as the mayor and the head of the Chamber of Commerce, though they don't say which is which. And they're both talking about how rare it is to get visitors and how they absolutely insist you stay for dinner at the diner, their treat. No arguments allowed. Their friendliness is aggressive, overwhelming, and you're boxed in by three people all standing too close and smiling too much. And you're trying to find a polite way to refuse when you notice more people gathering. 6, then 8, then a dozen, all emerging from shops and homes, all walking toward the gas station with that same purposeful stride and those same identical smiles. You pay quickly and get back in your car. And you're putting it in drive when the attendant steps in front of your vehicle, not threatening, just standing there with his hands up in a calming gesture, still smiling, saying, "You really should stay. It's going to be dark soon, and the roads around here are confusing, and wouldn't it be better to leave in the morning after a good night's sleep and a home-cooked breakfast?" The crowd has grown larger, maybe 20 people now, forming a loose semicircle around your car, and they're all nodding in agreement with the attendant, all adding their voices to the chorus of reasons why you should stay. You manage to navigate around the attendant and drive back toward Main Street. But the GPS has stopped working, frozen on a blank screen, and you can't remember which direction you came from. The roads all look identical, clean and well-maintained, and lined with perfect houses. And every turn you take seems to lead you back to Main Street. You try going straight for 6 blocks, and you end up on Main Street. You try a complicated series of turns, and you end up on Main Street. The sun has set completely now, and the streetlights are coming on, casting that orange sodium glow that makes everything look slightly unreal. You park outside the diner and try to get your bearings, pulling out a paper map you keep in the glove compartment. And that's when you notice all the people on the sidewalks have stopped moving. They're just standing there, maybe 30 or 40 of them now, all facing your direction, all wearing those smiles. And they're starting to move toward you in unison, not running, but walking in perfect synchronization. You lock your doors, and they keep coming. And when they reach your car, they surround it completely, pressing close, faces at every window, hands touching the glass, all of them speaking at once in a chorus that sounds almost rehearsed. They're saying you're welcome here, you're safe here, you should stay here, become part of their community. They need new people to keep the town alive. They're saying it over and over, variations on the same theme, and their voices blend together into a single sound that penetrates the car despite the closed windows. You try the engine and it starts, but the crowd doesn't move. They're pressed too close to drive through safely, and you're laying on the horn, but they just keep smiling and talking and touching the car. One of them, the mayor, or maybe the Chamber of Commerce person, you can't remember which, is writing something on your windshield with their finger, backwards so you can read it from inside. Please stay. You reverse suddenly, and the crowd parts just enough to let you back up, and you're driving in reverse down Main Street at 20 miles per hour because they're following you on foot, walking in that synchronized way, and every time you stop to shift into drive, they catch up. You manage to get turned around, and you're accelerating away from them when you see the roadblock ahead. Not police or construction, just parked cars positioned across the street, blocking all exit routes, and more people standing behind them with flashlights and more of those terrible smiles. You turn down a residential street, and they're waiting there too. People emerging from every house, children and adults and elderly people, all moving with that same coordinated purpose. You're driving on lawns now, between houses, tires tearing up perfectly manicured grass, and you burst through a fence and you're in a back alley, and you can see open land ahead, wheat fields beyond the town limits. You floor the accelerator and crash through someone's yard, and you're in the field, and you risk a look in your rearview mirror. And the entire population of the town is standing at the edge, a line of them watching you go. And they're not chasing anymore. They're just standing there, waving, all of them waving in perfect unison like some choreographed goodbye. You drive through the wheat field until you hit a dirt road, and you follow that until it meets a paved highway, and you drive for an hour without stopping, constantly checking your mirrors for headlights following. When you finally stop at a gas station in the next town, a real town with normal people and messy streets and imperfect smiles, you ask the attendant if he knows about a town near exit 43. He gives you a strange look and says, "There is no exit 43 on Highway 20. The numbers skip from 42 to 44. Been that way for 30 years since they closed that old exit that led to nowhere." You check your phone and there's no record of the GPS reroute, no history of the detour, just a straight line showing you drove Highway 20 from one town to the next with no stops. Your car is covered in mud and grass stains from driving through that field, so you know you didn't imagine it. But when you try to find the town on any map, digital or paper, there's nothing there. Just empty space in eastern Washington, where a perfect little town shouldn't be, but is. Waiting for the next lost driver to take an exit that doesn't exist and discover that some communities are so desperate for new residents, they'll do anything to make you stay. You're driving Highway 20 through the North Cascades in late October, heading east toward Winthrop, and the afternoon light is already fading behind the mountain peaks. The road climbs steadily through old-growth forest, switchbacks carved into rock faces, and you're making good time despite the conditions. Your phone lost signal about 20 miles back, which is normal for this remote stretch, and you're navigating from memory and the occasional road sign. The tunnel appears ahead, one of several that punch through the mountains on this route, and you can see the dark opening growing larger as you approach, framed by concrete abutments and those yellow caution lights that blink in sequence. The tunnel is maybe half a mile long based on the sign you passed, well lit with overhead fixtures every 50 feet, and your headlights aren't even necessary inside. The walls are modern concrete, so smooth and gray, with reflective markers running along the base and ventilation fans humming somewhere overhead. You count approximately 30 seconds from entrance to exit, coming out the other side into fading daylight and more mountain scenery. Except the tunnel entrance is directly ahead of you again. Same yellow caution lights, same concrete abutments, like you've somehow looped back to where you started without turning around. You slow down, confused, checking your mirrors to see if you somehow got turned around. But the road behind you leads away through the mountains, no tunnel visible, and ahead is definitely the entrance you just drove through. You tell yourself it's a different tunnel, that there must be two identical ones close together on this route, though that seems unlikely. You drive through again, counting this time, making it to 45 seconds before emerging into what should be a different landscape. But it's the same view, same placement of trees and rock faces. And yes, there's the tunnel entrance again, waiting ahead like it never left. Third time through, you notice the lighting is different. Not as bright, maybe half the fixtures are out, creating longer stretches of shadow between working lights. The concrete walls look slightly more weathered, small cracks visible in places, and there's water dripping from the ceiling in sections, leaving dark stains. The ventilation fans sound rougher, metal on metal grinding that echoes through the enclosed space. You emerge after 50 seconds this time, the tunnel seemingly longer, and the entrance is there again. Same position, same inevitable presence blocking your route forward. You stop the car before entering the fourth time, sitting there with the engine idling, trying to rationalize what's happening. GPS loop, some kind of optical illusion, extreme fatigue causing disorientation. But you know the tunnel is repeating, know you're passing through the same space multiple times, and it's changing with each iteration. You consider turning around, heading back west, but when you check your rearview mirror, the road behind you curves away into darkness that shouldn't be there in afternoon light. Forward seems like the only option, so you accelerate into the tunnel again. The fourth pass shows significant deterioration. Most of the overhead lights are dead now. Just every third or fourth fixture still working, and the darkness between them is profound. The concrete walls have large cracks running through them, some wide enough that you can see darkness beyond, suggesting voids in the rock. The pavement is rougher, potholes forming, and you have to slow down to navigate around them. There are stains on the walls that might be water damage, or might be something else. Organic looking, spreading in patterns that seem intentional. The ventilation fans are mostly silent, just one or two still running with that grinding sound. You take almost 90 seconds to traverse what should be a half-mile tunnel. Fifth time, the modern concrete is giving way to older construction. The walls are rough-hewn rock in places, supported by timber beams that look like they're from a different era. Thick, rough-cut logs instead of modern engineering. The lighting is almost completely gone. Just your headlights penetrating the darkness, catching reflections in puddles on the floor and the eyes of something small scurrying away from the light. The air smells different. Damp and mineral heavy, like you're deeper underground than a highway tunnel should go. The pavement is breaking up completely, just chunks of asphalt scattered across packed dirt, and tree roots are pushing up through the floor even though you're inside a mountain. You're shaking now, hands tight on the wheel, and you're counting seconds obsessively as you drive. 130 seconds before you see the exit, which should be impossible because the tunnel was only half a mile originally and you're not driving that slowly. But the exit appears, and you drive through, and the entrance is ahead. Closer now, like the distance between completion and restart is shrinking. The tunnel is drawing you back faster, giving you less time to process what's happening before you're committed to the next iteration. Sixth pass. The timber supports are rotting, some of them collapsed entirely, and you're driving over broken beams and scattered rock. The walls are mostly natural cave now, irregular and dripping, stalactites forming from the ceiling in places. There's no lighting at all, except what you provide, and your headlights show a space that's narrower, lower, more primitive with each meter you advance. You see markings on the walls, scratches or carvings, symbols you don't recognize, but that triggers some ancestral recognition in your brain. Warnings from people who passed through here when it was even less developed, even more dangerous. The smell is overwhelming now. Decay and mineral and something else. Something that might be bones. Seventh time. You're not sure this qualifies as a tunnel anymore. It's a cave, natural formation, and you're driving through spaces that were never meant for vehicles. Your car scrapes against rock outcroppings, mirror getting knocked aside, and the passage is so low in places that your roof brushes against stone. The floor is mud and gravel and ancient stone, no trace of modern pavement remaining, and you're bouncing over terrain that threatens to high-center your vehicle. There are things moving in the darkness beyond your headlights, glimpses of shapes that might be animals or might be something else, something that exists in deep places and doesn't appreciate intrusion. You're sobbing now, terrified but unable to stop. Because stopping in here seems worse than continuing forward. Your engine is straining, temperature gauge climbing, and you can hear metal grinding against rock as you navigate passages barely wide enough for your vehicle. The exit, when it finally appears, is just a lightening of the darkness ahead. And you burst through into what should be outside, but the tunnel entrance is right there, close enough to touch, and you understand with sick certainty that each cycle is taking you backward, showing you earlier and earlier versions of this passage through the mountain. Eighth time, the cave is narrower, rougher, and there are bones scattered across the floor. Animal bones mostly, you hope, but some of them are too large or wrong-shaped to be anything you recognize. The walls have more of those carved symbols, crude and ancient, and in your headlights they seem to move, shadows shifting independent of light source. You hear sounds ahead, echoing back through the passage, rhythmic and purposeful, like something working or building or just existing in spaces humans aren't meant to penetrate. Your car is damaged now, making noises it shouldn't make, fluids leaking, but the engine still runs and you keep driving because what else is there? Ninth iteration. You realize this isn't a cave anymore. It's something older, more fundamental. The passage is barely vehicle width. Walls pressing close enough to touch on both sides, ceiling so low you could reach up and brush it if your hands weren't locked on the steering wheel. The rock is wrong, not like any geology you know. Smooth and almost organic in texture, and warm to the proximity like it's living, or at least not entirely dead. The floor has no bones now, no debris, just smooth stone worn by something passing through regularly, for longer than bones would survive. You see movement ahead, shadows that coalesce into shapes and then dissolve. And you understand you're approaching something, some origin point or terminus. 10th time, the passage is barely navigable. Your car is scraping constantly, paint stripped away, metal screaming against stone. And you're moving at walking pace through a space that predates human construction, predates human presence in these mountains, maybe predates humans entirely. The shapes in the darkness are clearer now. Not quite visible, but present, watching, and they're large. So much larger than they should be, if they're meant to fit through this passage. The air is thick, hard to breathe, and you realize you've been descending this whole time, going deeper with each cycle. And you're far below where Highway 20 runs, far below where any road could exist. The exit appears, and you emerge not into daylight, but into a vast darkness, a space so large your headlights can't find the far walls, and you realize you've driven through the tunnel so many times, gone so far back through its history, that you've reached the time before. It was a tunnel at all, when it was just a natural passage through the mountain used by things that existed before highways, before roads, before the need for such things. The tunnel entrance is ahead, but it's not an entrance anymore, it's a mouth. And you understand finally what you've been witnessing. The regression of human construction revealing what was always there underneath. What we built our infrastructure over without asking permission or considering that some passages through mountains existed long before we needed to cross them. You don't enter the 11th time. You can't. Your car dies, engine seizing, and you're sitting in complete darkness except for the faint glow from that opening ahead. And shapes are moving toward you from that direction. Large shapes, unhurried, patient in the way things are patient when they've existed for geological time periods and understand that everything eventually comes to them. You try your door, and it opens, scraped and bent but functional, and you stumble out into the darkness and run. Not toward the opening, but away from it, into the vast space, hoping there's another way out, knowing there probably isn't. They find your car 3 days later, parked on the shoulder of Highway 20 just before the tunnel. Engine cold, doors locked, no sign of the driver. Inside the tunnel, which is perfectly modern, well lit and maintained according to all inspection records, there's no evidence of anything unusual. The concrete is sound, the lights all work, the ventilation is adequate. It takes 30 seconds to drive through at posted speed limit. Search and Rescue spends a week looking for you in the surrounding wilderness, assuming you wandered off confused or injured. But they find nothing. No tracks, no clothing, no indication you were ever there except for your car sitting empty beside a tunnel that's been there since 1972, when they blasted through the mountain to complete this section of highway. What they don't know, can't know, is that sometimes when drivers go through that tunnel late in the day, when the light is fading and they're tired and not paying full attention, they'll notice the lighting seems dimmer than it should be. Or they'll hear something over their engine that sounds like stone grinding on stone. Or they'll smell something old and mineral and wrong. And if they're unlucky, if conditions align in just the wrong way, they'll emerge and see the tunnel entrance ahead again, and they'll have to decide whether to drive through or turn back, whether to risk the regression or stay trapped in the mountains. Most turn back, most make it out. But every few years, someone doesn't, and their car appears on the shoulder, empty and locked. And the search teams find nothing, and the tunnel continues operating normally, patiently waiting for the next driver who goes through one time too many and discovers that some passages through mountains remember what they were before humans came, and they're hungry to return to that state, one vehicle and one driver at a time. The fuel light has been on for 30 miles, that orange warning glowing accusingly as you drive through the high desert of eastern Oregon on Highway 395. It's past midnight, and you haven't seen another vehicle in over an hour. Just endless sagebrush stretching away under a sky so full of stars, it feels oppressive rather than beautiful. The next town, according to your map, is 60 miles ahead, and you know you won't make it. So when you see the green exit sign announcing gas, food, lodging, you take it immediately, relief flooding through you despite the fact that there was no exit number posted and you don't remember seeing this on the map. The off-ramp curves through darkness, and after half a mile, you see lights ahead. A single gas station sitting alone in the vast emptiness, one of those old-style full-service operations with vintage pumps under buzzing fluorescent tubes. There's a small building attached, windows glowing warm, and a single attendant visible inside. You pull up to the pumps, and before you can get out, he's already coming through the door. A man who could be 40 or 60 or anywhere in between, wearing coveralls and a cap, moving with unhurried purpose across the concrete. The wind is constant out here, carrying that high desert smell of sage and dust, and the stars overhead are so bright they cast shadows. He approaches your window, and you roll it down. And before you can speak, he says, "You're running on fumes. Good thing you saw the exit when you did. Another 10 miles, and you'd have been stranded." His voice is calm, matter of fact, and you agree, thanking him for being open so late. He smiles, pulling a rag from his pocket to clean his hands, and says, "Late? I've been expecting you around this time. Give or take 15 minutes. You laugh awkwardly, assuming he means he expected someone to need gas eventually. But then he adds, "Hard drive from Portland, isn't it? Especially after the meeting ran long." You freeze. You were in Portland, and the meeting did run long, 2 hours past schedule, but you haven't mentioned any of this. The attendant is already unscrewing your gas cap, starting the pump, and he continues talking like he hasn't just revealed impossible knowledge. The regular unleaded should do it. Your tank takes 14.5 gallons, so you'll need about 12 to fill it from where you're at now. He's right about your tank capacity, which is specific enough to be unnerving, and you ask how he knows where you're coming from. He just smiles and says small stations like this, you get to know the patterns, get to recognize who's going to stop and who's going to drive past. The pump clicks and whirs, numbers rolling over on the analog display, and he's leaning against your car now, comfortable, conversational. Your daughter called you during the meeting, didn't she? 3 times. You didn't answer because you were presenting the quarterly numbers and your phone was on silent. Your heart starts beating faster because yes, that happened exactly that way. And there's no possible way he could know that. You ask him directly how he knows these things, and he looks up at the stars, considering his words carefully. Let's say I have a sense about people who stop here, about what brought them to this specific place at this specific time. He continues, and everything he says is accurate in ways that make your skin crawl. He mentions your sister's name, the argument you had with her 3 weeks ago that you haven't told anyone about. He describes your apartment, the specific way sunlight comes through the kitchen window in the morning. He knows about the promotion you were offered and turned down, the reasons why, the regret you've been carrying. He talks about your childhood dog, the one that died when you were 12. Mentions details about that dog's personality that you'd forgotten until he reminds you. All of it delivered in that same calm, conversational tone while the pump continues filling your tank and the wind blows sage smell across the empty desert. You're shaking now, demanding to know how he has this information, whether he's been following you, whether this is some elaborate prank. He shakes his head, patient and understanding. I'm not following you. You came here because you were meant to. This exit only appears for certain people at certain times, and you were scheduled for tonight. I've been waiting. The pump clicks off, and he removes the nozzle, replacing the gas cap with careful precision. He tells you the total, and it's reasonable, normal. But you're too disturbed to care about the cost. You pay with a credit card, and he runs it through an old manual imprinter, the kind that makes physical impressions. And while he's processing it, he says, "You're wondering if you should have answered those calls from your daughter. The third one especially. She needed to tell you something important." Your hand freezes while signing the receipt. You have been wondering that, have been planning to call her back in the morning, and you ask what she needed to tell you. The attendant hands you the receipt and your card, and his expression shifts to something like sympathy. That's not for me to say. That's between you and her. I'm just here to remind you that timing matters. Some conversations wait, others don't. He walks toward the building, then pauses and turns back. You're going to want to call her before you get back on the highway. There's a phone booth around the side, still works, quarters only. Or use your cell, you've got signal here. You check your phone and he's right. Full bars despite being in the middle of nowhere. You ask why he's telling you this, what he wants, and he just smiles that knowing smile. I don't want anything. I'm just the messenger. You stopped here because you needed to. Because something in the universe's timing brought you to this exit at this exact moment. Whether you listen to what I'm telling you is entirely your choice. Against every instinct that says to just drive away, you pull out your phone and call your daughter. She answers on the first ring, voice tight with emotion. And she tells you she's pregnant, 12 weeks along, and she wanted you to be the first to know after the father. She's scared and excited and needed to hear your voice, needed your support. And she's sorry for calling during your meeting, but it couldn't wait. You talk for 20 minutes, standing outside your car at a ghost-lit gas station in the Oregon desert, and you're crying, and she's crying, and you realize if you hadn't stopped here, if you'd somehow made it those extra 60 miles without fuel, You'd have been asleep in a hotel when she called again, and the moment would have been different. Flatter, less immediate. When you hang up, the attendant is standing outside the building, smoking a cigarette, and he nods like he knows exactly what you were told. You walk over to him, demanding answers, needing to understand what this place is and how he knows things he shouldn't know. He takes a long drag, and the ember glows bright in the darkness. This station has been here in various forms for a long time. Different buildings, different pumps, but always the same purpose. It's a waypoint, a place where people stop when they need to, when the timing needs adjustment, when something important hangs in the balance. I'm just the current attendant. There have been others before me, will be others after. You ask if he's human, and he laughs. Genuine amusement. Human enough. I eat, sleep, get tired like anyone. But I agreed to work here, to help facilitate these moments. And in exchange, I get to see things most people don't. The patterns, the connections, the way everything fits together when you step back far enough. He drops the cigarette and grinds it out with his boot. You were meant to stop here tonight. Your daughter was meant to tell you about the pregnancy now, not tomorrow, not next week. The timing had to be precise. My job was to make sure you stopped, to give you the information you needed to make the right choice. You ask what would have happened if you hadn't stopped, if you'd somehow had enough fuel to make it to the next town. His expression darkens slightly. Then you would have missed the window. Your daughter would have called someone else first, or not called at all tonight, and the relationship between you would have taken a different path. Not necessarily worse, just different. Every choice creates branches, and some branches lead to better places than others. This exit exists to nudge people toward the better paths when the universe determines they need nudging. He walks you back to your car, and in the fluorescent light, you notice details you missed before. The station building has no company logo, no brand affiliation, just gas painted in simple letters on the wall. There are no prices posted on the pumps. The attendant has no name tag. Everything is generic, temporary, like the place exists outside normal commercial systems. He opens your car door for you, old-fashioned courtesy, and before you get in, he says one more thing. You're going to have a grandson. He'll be born healthy, and he'll inherit your daughter's eyes and your sense of humor. You'll teach him to fish when he's 5, and he'll remember that day for the rest of his life. That's waiting for you on this path, if you make the right choices from here forward. You're crying again, overwhelmed by information you can't verify but somehow know is true, and you ask how he can possibly know this. He shrugs. Time isn't as linear as people think. From where I stand, working this station, I can see a little ways down the various paths. Your path has branched toward something good tonight. Stay on it. You get in your car, start the engine, and when you look up to wave goodbye, the attendant is already back inside the building, silhouetted in the window. You pull out of the station and back onto the access road toward the highway. When you reach the entrance ramp to Highway 395, you glance in your rearview mirror at the gas station, and it's not there. The lights are gone. The building, the pumps, everything has vanished. And there's just darkness and sagebrush and the endless desert. You stop the car and turn around, drive back down the access road. But there's nothing there. No evidence that a gas station ever existed. No concrete pad, no underground tanks, no electrical lines. Just empty land with tire tracks in the dust that could be from any vehicle at any time. You check your fuel gauge and it's full. Your receipt is in your pocket, paper real and solid, timestamp showing 12:47 a.m., but no station name, no address, just "Thank you" printed at the bottom. You drive north toward your destination, hands steady on the wheel, and you're thinking about your daughter, about the grandson you'll meet someday, about the attendant who knew things he shouldn't know and offered information that felt like a gift rather than a warning. You never find that exit again, though you drive Highway 395 dozens of times in the years that follow. The green sign doesn't appear, and when you ask locals about a gas station in that area, they tell you there's nothing between the towns, hasn't been for decades. But you have the receipt, fading slowly in your wallet, and you have the memory of that conversation with your daughter. And 5 years later, you'll teach your grandson to fish just like the attendant predicted. And the boy will laugh with your voice and look at you with his mother's eyes. And you'll think about that night in the desert when you stopped at a gas station that existed outside time to receive a message about the importance of being present for the moments that matter. Some exits only appear when you need them, and some attendants know more than they should. And sometimes, the universe arranges things so you're in exactly the right place at exactly the right time, even if you never understand how or why. The Pacific Northwest's roads hold more than just pavement and mile markers. They hold stories like these, experiences that blur the line between the possible and the impossible. Moments when travelers encounter something beyond explanation. If these stories have left you questioning what's waiting on those dark highways, if you find yourself checking your mirrors more carefully or hesitating before taking that unmarked exit, then you understand the truth that lives in these mountains and forests and endless coastal roads. There are things out there that don't follow our rules, that exist in spaces we've built over but never truly claimed. Subscribe to Verified Fears for more stories that'll make you think twice before taking that late-night drive. And remember, some roads are meant to be traveled carefully, and some exits are better left untaken. Stay safe out there.